everyone. Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel. Reading with the Crew, the Aftermath, Episode 4.
Thank you so much, Jack61. Thank you for that warm introduction and a warm welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been really, really great. My name is Dr. Silkman, and I'm from the Foul Play team. I'm from Adelaide, South Australia. And I'd like to, first of all, welcome my fellow panel members today. And I think we're going to have some more joining us a little bit later. First off, we have Jack61. Welcome, sir. How are you coming along?
Doing very well. I'd also like to welcome everyone to the podcast. Going to be doing some more ultra deep diving into Brendan. It's going to get crazy. Try not to have anything near you because you're probably going to get mad again. So, yeah, it's going to be good.
Excellent. Thank you so much there, Jack61. And a warm welcome to you, Susan. How are you coming along?
Thank you, Doc. I'm doing great. Having a very nice day today. Welcome to all of our chatters and lurkers, and thank you for being here.
Awesome. Again, guys, I'd like to echo. We have, as Sunshine Christina joined us, or just about to join us.
Hello, shalom, everyone. How are you?
Sunshine, how are you coming along?
I am doing lovely. I'm learning to navigate my new laptop. I'm very grateful. Susan and I tried out the microphone and camera today, and I didn't realize how far behind I had fallen on just like app updates and all that. So it's been just a year is a huge learning curve. It really is.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But you're coming through crystal clear.
Well, good. I'm glad. Plus, Susan said it's better to use the laptop because then I have to stay still. I can't walk around.
Great. Well, welcome, Sunshine Christina. So again, guys, a warm welcome to everyone. Today we're going to be continuing our series. So we're not going to waste any time because we have a lot to cover. Jack61, if we can have the very first opening slide, please. All right. So as you know, we've placed this new series together entitled The Aftermath, where the emphasis is looking at what happened to Brendan's journey per se, what happened to him after his March 1st interrogation. And so today we're going to be continuing our podcast series. And there's a couple of things that we're going to be talking about today, which again, you just will not going to believe happened to Brendan. So what are we going to be talking about in today's podcast? We're going to have a look at the pros and cons of accepting a plea deal and the implications for Brendan Dassey. And as you know, right from the outset, Brendan's attorney, Len Kaczynski, at that stage, was going for a plea deal. So what are the pros and cons of a plea deal? What are the implications for Brendan? We're also going to have a look at what actually is a preliminary hearing and why it's important in a case. And as you know, Ralph Zagelski, he didn't want to do a preliminary hearing for Brendan, much to the surprise of Judge Fox. So what is a preliminary hearing? What is the importance of a preliminary hearing? And due to some excellent questions from last week, we're going to have a look at how the rumors of photographs that were circulating around showing a Teresa Horbach pinned up or restrained, how the actual rumor started. Very, very interesting. And we've got the reports that talk about that. A major part of today's podcast is the polygraph test. We found it. We found the questions as well. So again, what we're going to do is have a look at the polygraph that was performed by Michael O'Kelly. And we're going to ask the question, what were the results? And I'm sure Jack61 and everybody else will know, you're going to be shocked at what the actual results from the polygraph test were. right? So we're going to go through that, go through the questions. Then this will really upset a lot of people, and that is that Kaczynski put forward a motion to suppress Brendan Dassey's March 1st interrogation, the confession, and how he went about it. So we're going to go through that. That's critical for what happened to Brendan subsequently afterwards. And finally, guys, we're going to show you that Michael O'Kelly, who was an investigator for Kaczynski, was actually working in the background, trying to gather damaging forensic evidence that would help the state and go against their own client. And he was getting Brendan Dassey ready to elicit a full confession from him. So, guys, today's podcast is going to be jam-packed. Get ready. As Jack61 pointed out, if you have any sharp objects, put them aside, right? So again, guys, everyone here on the Foul Play team, want to thank you so much for your support, for your passion, for your questions. Please keep on doing them. The only thing that we ask is please, guys, be civil in the chat. And if you have a question, place a Q and we'll try and answer your question at the end of the podcast. As always, if you enjoy what we do, please consider subscribing, putting a thumbs up, put your DNA in the thumbs up button if you enjoy our podcast. And please give us feedback, whether you like our podcast, what you'd like to see. We're very, very adaptive. And as you know, Jack61 and other members do open mic, and they cover a lot of topics. All right, guys. Jack61, guys, is there anything that we need to quickly discuss before we start the podcast proper? All good?
I think we're all good, Doc.
Okay, awesome. So Jack61, if we can have the very first slide. Now, a lot of people really can't believe what has happened to Brendan Dassey and his journey. So I know, and to our great delight, right, guys, we're having a lot of new people coming onto the case, coming into our Discord channel, doing discussions on our channel and also on X. So what I want to do is quickly summarize what has happened to Brendan Dassey so far. Now, as you know, Brendan Dassey was interrogated multiple times. He was interrogated by Mark Wiegert and Tom Fassbender. And on March the 1st, this is the interrogation that at the end of that interrogation, what Brendan Dassey told the investigators got him arrested. Now, there's no doubt that a lot of people have looked at Brendan as a person, as a character. And there is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that he is an intellectually challenged 16-year-old child. He's got the mental age of someone who's much, much, much younger. There's no dispute in that. A lot of experts, a lot of professionals have looked at Brendan. Plus, he was receiving a lot of special treatment in his classes, right? Now, Fassbender and Wiegert used a technique called the read technique. And there is no doubt that on certain vulnerable individuals, the read technique can solicit a false confession. And someone like Brendan Dassey is extremely vulnerable. And you don't have to have standover tactics in order to solicit a false confession, especially in someone like Brendan. What is very important is that initially Brendan Dassey was represented by Ralph Cegelski. And he's the one that waived Brendan Dassey's right to a pretrial. Cegelski had to recuse himself because he found out that he was cousins with Teresa Horbach. So now a new attorney, Len Kaczynski, was assigned to Brendan Dassey. And as we've discussed in previous podcasts, Len Kaczynski was already talking to the media and giving subtle hints that his client is guilty and they want to go for a plea deal. And that's very important. That's before Len Kaczynski even spoke to Brendan Dassey. Brendan Dassey, on meeting with Len Kaczynski, said from the outset, right, guys? And we showed it. Brendan told his attorney, I am innocent. And the March 1st confession was false. So Brendan was saying that he was innocent from the get-go. Now, what Brendan didn't know at the time was after Len Kaczynski hired Michael O'Kelly, Michael O'Kelly was there to do a polygraph. Now, Brendan asked his attorney, Len Kaczynski, I want to do a lie detector test. I want to prove my innocence. That is coming from Brendan. Didn't come from the attorneys, didn't come from anybody else. Brendan must have thought, he must have seen programs where individuals have done lie detector tests or polygraphs, and he wanted to do one. So Len Kaczynski hired Michael O'Kelly. However, Michael O'Kelly decided he was going to become an investigator. And we'll talk about that, what had happened. What Brendan didn't know was that his own attorney and also his own investigator, they were directly communicating with Fassbender and Wiegert, the very two investigators that had interrogated Brendan Dassey and arrested Brendan Dassey. Further, Brendan was not aware that his own attorney, Kaczynski, was directly communicating with Mr. Kratz. Now, why is this an issue? Well, Mr. Kratz is the prosecuting attorney for not only Brendan, but for Stephen, right? He's the special prosecuting attorney. So there was communication going on between Kaczynski, O'Kelly, and Mr. Kratz. And essentially, what the gist of all of this, and we'll show you, was that Mr. Kratz wanted a confession, a clean confession, right, Jack 61, right, guys? Wanted a clean confession from Brendan. Because remember, after Mr. Kratz did the March 2nd press conference, it was a total shit show. A total shit show. But Mr. Kratz was aware that Brendan's narrative, Brendan's story was forever changing, was very inconsistent. So he wanted a clean confession. And we'll talk about that later on. Now, in exchange for this clean confession, Mr. Kratz and Kaczynski wanted Brendan Dassey to testify against his uncle, testify against him. And I think there was some deal regarding immunity as well, immunity to prosecution, etc., etc. But it never turned out well at all. Brendan Dassey had rejected a plea deal, right? So in exchange, so what was happening in the background was that Kaczynski and O'Kelly thought their own client was guilty from the get-go. So their way of thinking was, let's get a clean confession from Brendan, and in exchange, Mr. Kratz would offer a plea deal for Brendan. In other words, instead of spending 90 plus years in prison, Brendan could spend as little as maybe 20, right? So that was the plea deal that was going on. Brendan wasn't aware of all this communication that was occurring between Mr. Kratz and also his own attorney, Len Kaczynski. Guys, do we have any comments so far?
No, I think you played that pretty good, Doc.
Okay, so that's to bring everybody up to date. So here's the question. What are the pros and cons of a plea deal? So Jack 61, if we can have a look at the very next slide, guys. All right. So you can go on any legal site, and it's basically the same type of information that lists a plea deal, what it offers, both the pros and cons. Susan, do you see the slide?
I do, Doc.
Are you happy to read out the pros? And Sunshine Christina, do you also see the slide?
Yes, I do.
Are you happy to read out the cons of a plea deal? So this is what was offered to Brendan, potentially offered to Brendan, a plea deal. So let's go through the pros and the cons of a plea deal. Whenever you're ready, Susan.
So the pros, number one is reduced sentencing. Defendants often receive a lighter sentence than they might if found guilty at trial. Certainty. Plea deals provide a predictable outcome, eliminating the uncertainty of a trial. Speed. Resolving a case through a plea deal is typically much faster than going to trial, which can take months or even years. Cost savings. Trials can be expensive due to legal fees and court costs. A plea deal can significantly reduce these expenses. Lesser charges. Sometimes plea deals involve pleading guilty to lesser charges, which can have less severe long-term consequences.
Okay.
The cons. Number one, innocent pleas. Innocent defendants might feel pressure to accept a plea deal to avoid the risk of a harsher sentence if convicted at trial. Two, criminal record. Accepting a plea deal means having a criminal record, which can affect future employment and other opportunities. Three, limited appeal rights. Plea deals often include waiving the right to appeal, limiting options if new evidence arises. 4. Justice concerns. Some argue that plea deals can let law enforcement off the hook for poor investigations or misconduct. And 5. Public perception. There can be a stigma associated with accepting a plea deal, as it might be seen as an admission of guilt.
Okay, guys, what do you think of that? Any comments? Jack61.
Oh, yeah, I got a comment. Virtually in everything under the pros, virtually everything in that list only benefits the state.
The state, correct.
Period.
Correct.
But for me, I guess for me overall, is that plea deals are legal extortion. That's why they're used. To me, that's how
Jack, I
go
think
ahead.
reduced sentencing benefits the accused if you're facing like life or death or
Well, again, that's why I said virtually everything in that list.
but
There
the
are
cons that go with it, that's the catch right there.
that's right. That's
What
exactly
you
right.
have to give up in order to do that. Yeah.
But
Correct.
and that last, I guess that last couple there that Christina read, basically, there could be a stigma associated with accepting a plea deal. If you're innocent, but you've admitted you're guilty,
Yes.
so you're only forced down one path, one corridor, because the justice system just doesn't have time to deal with your case. So we've got enough. We're probably going to be able to, hammer you at trial. You can't afford anything but a public defender, and they're overworked anyway. They'll get to it when they get to it. Maybe a few years, so you can rot in jail while you wait.
Yes. Yep.
There's all kinds of things associated. I'm telling you, to me, and I guess maybe because I've never been in trouble, I don't see
Yes.
the good. I see great harm being done to our criminal justice system
Correct.
with the advent of plea deals. I'll be quiet now because I'll
Correct.
keep going.
So and I'll get Sunshine Christina on in a second. So in the end, it's a balancing act, isn't it? It's a very, very careful decision, Susan.
Doc, I think if you're actually guilty, plea deals
Yes.
are probably, a great way to go if you're
Yes.
offered one, if you're actually guilty. If you get an innocent person, it's horrible that you have to, in order to get a reduced sentencing or lesser charges, you have to plead guilty. And
Correct.
if you're not, you're facing whatever they're going to throw at you.
Correct. Good point. Sunshine Christina.
It also opens the door, like if it's any kind of plea deal where you're put on probation or something like that, where you no longer are a citizen, you are property of the county or the state. So they not only are you having to pay money for cost of supervision, court cost, all that, then if something does happen, or heaven forbid, you end up catching, they decide to target you again and you get another charge, your rights are drastically reduced because on probation,
it's an
you have-
erosion.
that's right. You have different rights versus as a citizen. You know, like you could be in a vehicle, you know, hypothetical, you could be on a blind date and not know someone's a felon, and that person could get pulled over and you're on probation. And because you're with a felon, you could go straight to jail, do not pass go, do not collect $200. So it's, I mean, it's just, it's a slippery slope. And I agree with Jax. I think that restorative justice avenues are a much better option versus probation, plea deals, that kind of thing. I think they serve everyone better because it benefits everyone but the prison industry.
Correct. So I think it's to me, reading the pros and cons, you got to consider, and Susan made an excellent point. If you have committed a crime, this is a way to have a reduced sentence and your case resolved fairly quickly. If you're innocent, potentially you can go to the road of hell, waiting for a trial, etc., and your rights in the end are diminished. And notice, if new forensic evidence comes along that actually proves you're innocent and you've taken a plea deal, you're in all sorts of trouble. And there are many cases, especially in the US, in which individuals have taken plea deals, and in the end, they've been shown through DNA analysis or for witnesses coming forward that they were indeed innocent, right? So you've got to be very careful. To me, it is a very delicate balancing act. Now, I want to quickly go around the panel and also in chat. I'd like to hear your viewpoint. You're Brendan. And it's pretty obvious that his own attorney, Kaczynski, is telling him regarding a plea deal. There's no doubt that Brendan is communicating with family members, and his family members are saying, don't take a plea deal. If you're innocent, don't take a plea deal. And Kratz turned this around by saying that Ma and Pa Avery and Barb were prepared to sacrifice their son and their grandson to protect Stephen. Now, if you're in Brendan's situation, would have you accepted a plea deal knowing that you're innocent? Jack 61, yes or no, sir?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Susan.
I can't even imagine having to face that choice. But no.
Okay. Interesting.
And, you know, I think it depends on what they're claiming they have on you. Also, you know, yeah, I don't feel Brendan should have taken a plea deal, although it would mean he'd be out now, although he would have, you know, he would have a criminal record, be a sex offender.
Yes.
You know, all of that horrible stuff that goes with it. But yeah, it's such a mess. It's such a mess when you're innocent.
Okay, so would you have pled? Would have you gone with a plea deal if you were Brendan?
If I were Brendan, I would have listened to Ma and Pa and his mother, and yeah, I would have listed all of them. So I'm sure I would have done the same thing he did.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Susan. What about yourself, Sunshine? Would have you accepted a plea deal?
No, I wouldn't have. But I mean, but I'm like Brendan and Stephen. I believe that you don't lie
Yes.
to two wrongs don't make it right. You know what I mean? I'm built that way. I can understand how people are, I can understand why people do these things, but I have to believe that I would have made the same decision, because I think what people see as guilt when they look at Brendan after that confession is Brendan feeling like he had betrayed his uncle by lying on him. And he knew it was wrong and he just knew it was wrong. And I know what that kind of guilt can do to you. And I think that the reason Brendan is a happy-go-lucky guy and doing time in prison for a crime he didn't commit is because he knows he did the right thing.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. But for me, I would not have accepted the plea deal if I was Brendan. If in your mind and you believe that you're innocent, because remember what we're dealing here. There's not stealing a bag of lollies. This is the rape of a 25-year-old woman, the torture of a 25-year-old woman, the murder of a 25-year-old woman, and hiding her vehicle and possessions. This
Don't forget dismemberment, though.
Yeah, I know, but Brendan forgot the he forgot the dismemberment.
But he was found guilty, right?
That's correct. Dismembering a corpse, correct. So this is a very, very serious set of crimes. And in Brendan's mind, he said that it was innocent, and he told Kaczynski from the get-go, and he didn't accept the plea deal, right? So it is very, very difficult. There's one big issue, and the panel members have already alluded to it. The interrogators, Fassbender and Wiggett, are permitted to lie to Brendan. And Brendan, I believe, became convinced that his uncle had committed the murder. But in Brendan's mind, he couldn't work it out because he was with his uncle and saw nothing nefarious. Remember, the kid was home by around about 7:30, 7:45, right? So in his mind, he couldn't work it out. Hell, my uncle did this, but I was there, right? So it is a very difficult thing. So guys, what about in chat? What seems to be the general consensus? Are people saying yes? Are people saying no? What is the general feedback, guys?
I've seen a few no's. I wouldn't take it. Justin Stricken said it's hard to say if you take a plea deal in someone else's shoes when you don't know for a fact if they committed the crime or not. If it was a crime on video, I could say one way or another.
Correct.
Like I said earlier, if you're guilty, you're better off taking a plea deal. If you're innocent, you're not.
Correct. Well, in the end, of course, Brendan Dassey didn't take the plea deal, right? And he's sitting in prison to at least 2048, right? So they're the pros and cons of a plea deal, but the rot started way before that. And that is, what is the importance of a preliminary hearing, right? So if we go to the next slide, Jack 61, this is truly remarkable. Now, we know that Zagorski, who represented Brendan, I think only for a day, basically told the judge, hey, look, Judge, Your Honor, we don't want a preliminary hearing. We're happy to waive it. Now, when Brendan got his new attorney, Kaczynski, this is very interesting because, of course, Strang and Buting were representing Stephen at the time. So I found this extract from Buting's book, in which Buting went up to Kaczynski and spoke to him. Jack 61, do you see the slide? I think you're muted.
Yeah, I was trying to get to it. Yeah, I see that.
Would you like to read this passage? This is regarding the preliminary hearing.
All righty. As shocking as Kaczynski's statements had been to the press on his first day, he was still Brendan Dassey's lawyer. The next time he was in court on some routine matter connected with the case, I settled up with him and spoke to Cegelski, the lawyer he had replaced. As I recall, he said, quote, "Lynn, this guy gave up an important statutory right to a preliminary hearing when he was conflicted out and should never have been on the case. You can file a motion and get the preliminary hearing back. This waiver was void." Kaczynski just kind of smiled and said, quote, "Oh, okay, I'll think about it," end quote. He was not at all enthusiastic. He was signaling without explicitly saying that he wasn't going to file that motion. If there was any doubt that Kaczynski wasn't going to be aggressive in representing Brendan, this omission made it plain. Asking him to withdraw that waiver of a hearing was a simple, obvious thing any good lawyer would do. A declaration on behalf of the client. Even if Kaczynski did not yet realize that Brendan maintained that he was innocent, at the very least, the hearing could have improved his client's leverage in negotiations. I'm going to file this motion. We have a right to this, and the lawyer who waived it should have never been on the case to begin with. We're going to challenge this statement from day one, including have a preliminary hearing about it.
Right. So Kaczynski's got really no excuse, right? Buting went up to Kaczynski and said, "Mate, Brendan's previous attorney waived the right. You obviously know that you can now request a preliminary hearing," right? And of course, Kaczynski, in typical Kaczynski fashion, just simply smiled and said, yeah, I'll think about it, but obviously never did. To me, this represents a strategy. Guys, would you agree? From the get-go.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, I agree.
It represents a clear strategy. Now, you may be thinking, well, Brendan, it wouldn't have gone anywhere, etc., but it turns the tables on the state, right? So I looked up what is the importance of a preliminary hearing, right? So why would you want to have a preliminary hearing? And of course, with Stephen, he had a preliminary hearing as well. So if we go to the next slide, Jack 61, I reckon what we'll do, we'll read one each. Is that okay? So here are the so-called the benefits of having a preliminary hearing in front of a judge. So Jack 61, would you like to read the first one?
Yep. Number one, evidence assessment. The primary purpose of a preliminary hearing is to determine whether there is enough evidence to proceed to trial. The judge evaluates the prosecution's evidence to decide if it meets the probable cause standard, meaning there is sufficient reason to believe that the defendant committed the crime.
Okay.
That's kind of important.
Yes.
Yeah. Hugely important.
Yep. Number two, protection against unfounded charges. Preliminary hearings help protect defendants from facing trial on baseless charges. If the judge finds the evidence insufficient, the charges can be dismissed, preventing wrongful prosecution.
Number three, preview of the case. This hearing provides both the defense and the prosecution a preview of the case. The defense can see the evidence and witness testimonies that the prosecution plans to use, which can be crucial for preparing their defense strategy.
Number four, decision on custody. For defendants in custody, a preliminary hearing must occur within a specific time frame. This ensures that individuals are not held indefinitely without sufficient evidence upholding their right to a speedy trial.
Number 5, sometimes the evidence presented at a preliminary hearing can lead to a plea negotiations. Both parties might decide to settle the case without going to trial based on the strengths or weakness of the evidence revealed during the hearing.
Okay. So would you agree, guys, if we go up and down the panel, that a preliminary hearing potentially could have been very, very useful and important for Brendan, Jack61?
Oh, I think it was definitely, we're not talking about a traffic ticket. This is major. This is his life. It's
Yep.
extremely critical that he have a preliminary hearing.
Okay. Susan?
To me, that seems a reason enough for Brendan to get a new trial.
Yes.
I mean, that is just outrageous. And
Yes.
the fact that the guy that waived it had a
Was related
conflict
to
of
Paul
interest. Yeah, it was related to Hallbox, for gosh sakes. I mean, how often does that happen, that a lawyer waives the preliminary hearing on a murder case?
Yes.
I think it's very rare, Susan.
Yeah, I should think so, unless they've got him doing it on camera or something,
Yep. But I've got a very special comment which I pulled out from the 2010 post-conviction hearing from Kratz. I think he slipped up on something. We'll play that in a second. So you think, Susan, that a preliminary hearing would have been very useful for Brendan?
Yeah, because they didn't have anything on him. They had no
Okay.
evidence to back up, his entire confession.
Yep. Okay. Interesting. Sunshine Christina, your viewpoint.
I think that Susan hit on it. I think a preliminary hearing would have allowed his attorney from that point to say this was a false confession and put out a different narrative for the media to also explore, instead of them keeping them focused on Stephen being the sweaty uncle who made this boy do this. So I think you're right. I think it was it was probably part of the master plan.
Yes, correct. Look, there's no doubt, my opinion is that a preliminary hearing with the appropriate experts would have blown the case apart. Now, to summarize very quickly, that's exactly what Judge Willis said. Remember, guys, what did Judge Willis write? He wrote, I've issues with Brendan Dassey's so-called confession. Why? Because there is no forensic evidence that backs up his story that places Teresa Halbach inside Stephen Avery's trailer. Guys, do you remember that?
I do.
This is the attorney prosecuting Stephen Avery, who made the comment regarding Brendan, saying, mate, there's no evidence that he did the things that he said he did. Susan, do you have a comment?
It's just mind-boggling, Doug. Just mind-boggling.
Yes, and don't worry, Three Ravs, Nyrider studied all of this, all of it. In fact, I'll present some stuff that she did, which is just going to blow your mind. Oh, don't worry, Nyrider and Steve Drizzen and others are fully onto this. This is a legal matter. This is about legal opinions. It's no longer about the truth. Guys, would you agree? This is about legalities.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? This thing of trying to find, what the truth is, that's long gone. It's all about opinions. Now,
Yes.
There is no doubt that had Brendan had a preliminary hearing, you would have had all this evidence. And there's just one thing that Kaczynski would have had to have said. Does any of that evidence point to my client? And the answer would have been
Absolutely not. No.
no. And had Kaczynski hired the false confession expert that Buting hired, they would have had a very, very interesting preliminary hearing saying, Your Honor, my client was coerced into a false confession because of A, B, C, D. That chance was gone, destroyed, right? So it goes to show, why make the case for the state easy? And that's because, in my opinion, there were backyard dealings going on. There was a strategy from the get-go. Now, Jack 61, if we look at the next slide, right? Steve Drizzen, who was not liked by Ken Kratz, asked him a very interesting question. Have a look what Kratz actually said. Jack 61, are you happy to read Steve Drizzen, which is the question? And Susan, are you happy to read Kratz's response, which is answered, which is the answer?
Sure, sugar. Sure, sugar.
Let's go for it.
Oh, I'm reading the answers.
Yeah, you're reading the answers. That's Kratz.
I know for a fact that Mr. Kaczynski waived the prelim and he got skewered.
That was Mr. Sagelski.
Mr. Sagelski waived the prelim and got skewered by his brethren in the defense bar because of waiving a prelim in a homicide case. I have the opinion that was absolutely the right thing to do with what he had on his plate, and that Mr. Sagelski at that time was of the opinion that somewhere down the road, this case was leading to a plea, not a trial. That was in his client's best interest.
And
We haven't heard from Mr. Sagelski, and so all of this early plea negotiations and how inappropriate it might be, we're apparently not going to hear from Mr. Sagelski. Having said that,
you can call him if you would like.
and we might.
Okay.
So, what? Let's work this out.
Sorry.
Sagelski just met Brendan Dassey. Probably only had the criminal complaint. Knew nothing about what had taken place. He didn't see the March 1st interrogation. Had nothing. Already, he said, "Oh, Your Honor, we don't need what's it called, the preliminary hearing." And notice what Kratz said, because he thought that down the road it was going to be leading to a plea deal. This begs the question. Did Kratz have a discussion with Sagelski before talking to Judge Fox?
Obviously.
Well, it certainly seems that way.
Right? Because he stated what Sagelski's thought process was. And that's why...
And that was in his client's best interest.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And that's why Drizzen said to him, well, you could call him later on. Oh, we might.
We might
because
do
that's
that.
hearsay. That's hearsay. He's saying what Sagelski was thinking, that down the road, it would have been better just to go for the plea deal and not go for a trial. This is before Brendan's own attorney had a chance to look at anything.
It's ridiculous.
Susan, did you have a comment?
It's insane. It's such a setup. It's so freaking obvious. How can anybody think otherwise? The guy's related to the Hallbox, and don't tell me that he didn't know he was related to the Hallbox. Sorry.
Yes, he did.
I don't happen to believe that.
Ah.
I've never believed it.
Yeah.
No.
Yep. So in my opinion,
he was put there by Kratz.
It was to get the ball rolling. Judge, we don't want a preliminary hearing. Buting then spoke to Kaczynski saying, mate, you can ask for a preliminary hearing. You realize that, don't you? And then Kaczynski said, no, don't worry about it. We're not going to have a preliminary hearing. His whole intentions from the get-go was to do a plea deal. So these guys were obviously talking, colluding, and we'll prove it, that the best way to fix this up really quickly, not have a trial, is to go for a plea deal on the basis that Brendan gave a full confession, gave Kratz a piece of paper, which he can hand over to the judge, and then they do a plea deal. Thank you. 15, 20 years in prison. Thank you very much. Now, I remember last week when Kratz wrote the email to Kaczynski saying, I'll ask Brendan if he knows anything about that camera. Remember what we talked about, the camera in which they were insinuating that Stephen and Brendan took photos while they were torturing Teresa Hallbach. Remember that?
Yep.
Yeah. And
Right?
also the ropes, right? In the
the
garage.
ropes and everything like that, because he goes, believe it or not, there's forensic evidence missing. Maybe your client can help us find that forensic evidence, right? So I found the original source where the rumors came from, right? So Jack 61, if we can have a look at the CASO report, this is the unredacted Jack 61 CASO report, right? I know you're going to make a few comments tomorrow in your open mic, right? Oops, you're muted.
Don't even get me started.
I know.
I'm gonna have a few things to say.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So let's work this out. There were rumors circulating around that Brendan Dassey was showing people photographs of Teresa Hallbach pinned up, chained up, torture, whatever. That Brendan Dassey was showing these photographs at school. I think they were meant to be digital prints. So I worked out, I found out where the information had come from, right? Sunshine Christina, are you happy to read what's out in what I've highlighted in blue? So this is the 9th of March. Notice this is only a couple of days really after Brendan Dassey got arrested, right? Can you read out this report, please?
Yes. Oh, okay. So this is Kumbalik. Yeah, Kumbalik indicates his daughter Matraka rides the school, I guess they meant bus, with a subject named Colin Campion. Oh, I remember that name. According to Robin Kumbalik, his daughter advised him that she had been told by Colin Campion that Colin had been shown photographs of Teresa Hallbach that apparently showed her restrained. Kumbalik indicated his daughter told him Colin Campion advised he had been shown these pictures by Brendan Dassey. Investigator, Mr. Campion, I'm just going to read the rest of it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
just read it. Yeah.
Okay. Investigator Uyghur and I departed for the Choteau, Wisconsin area in an attempt to locate Mr. Campion. We subsequently contacted Mr. Campion in the Manitowoc County Courthouse, where he was appearing in a juvenile intake matter.
Now, hold on. You're an investigator and you're hearing this information. Did they take it seriously? Yes or no?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
They went straight down. They went to, holy shit, right? Because remember, Brendan had confessed to all this mayhem, ultra-violence. Oh my God. Someone has said that Brendan is showing pictures to his fellow classmates of Teresa Hallbach being restrained. We need to go and investigate this immediately, right? They took it really seriously, and so did Kratz. So you want to have a look at the next page? So have a look at the next report. They went down. The investigators went down immediately. So I reckon what we'll do, same date, I reckon what we'll do is we'll read it, but we'll do a paragraph each. Are you happy with that? So Jack 61, you wanna start off?
Works for me.
Yeah.
You mean to start at the top? You want to start at the top, Doc?
Yeah. Let's read the whole lot.
Okay. On Thursday, March 9, 2006, at 2:16 hours, 2:16 p.m., investigator Wiegert and
4:16.
Dettering. I'm sorry, 4:16. Investigator Wiegert and Dettering did
Stop.
interview the following individual in a conference room at the Manitowoc County Courthouse, Manitowoc, Wisconsin.
Jelly.
Present also in the interview was attorney Lindsay Grawl. Grawl had been appointed by the Public Defender's Office to represent Mr. Redacted in his
Hanson.
juvenile intake, and she graciously volunteered to sit in on the interview with Mr. Redacted at his request.
Sunshine.
Blank had been advised he was not a suspect in this matter, and we were merely looking for information from him. He indicated he was a friend of Brendan Dassey's for approximately 2 years at least. Blank indicates he is currently in 10th grade at Mishcot High.
Jack 61.
Blank denied any knowledge of Teresa Halbach's death. He stated there are no pictures.
I'll read the next one. He stated, quote, "Sometimes I don't take my bipolar pills and I say things." He stated he did recall telling people on the school bus that there was a camera with photographs of Brendan Dassey and Teresa Halbach. He then indicated, quote, "Someone told me there were pictures taken of Teresa Halbach," end quote. At this point, I suggested that Investigator Wiegert and I remove ourselves from the conference room and allow Attorney Grawl to explain to Mr. Redacted the ramifications of being dishonest during an investigation of this magnitude.
Oh,
Susan.
God.
Wiegert and I left the conference room for approximately 5 minutes, returning at 16:25 hours. At this point, Redacted advised there was a rumor going around school that Stephen Avery had taken photographs of Teresa Halbach. He continued to maintain he did not know who provided him with the rumor. He did, however, indicate he had told a subject named Ryan New about the rumor. He stated the rumor he had been told indicated there were photographs of Teresa lying naked on the bed.
Sunshine.
He denied that Brendan Dassey had told him anything regarding this matter. He continued to maintain that he did not know the source of the rumor and ultimately indicated that he had made the entire story up. Our interview with Mr. Redacted concluded at 16:38 hours. Investigation does not continue.
What do you think?
They did continue
Yes, I did.
looking for the camera.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
I did.
I was
did.
trying
But what do you think of this shit?
I actually, for a while, I was under the impression that they used this kid to introduce the possibility of a camera, thinking that they were going to be able to swap the camera they may potentially have had for Stevens. But reading this, I believe this was kids talking on a school bus and somebody overheard something and told their parent. I think this is probably one of the true accounts of something that occurred in the case. That's my gut.
You mean somebody made up a rumor? That's
Yeah.
cool.
Well, and I'm going to share, this is like an aside, but I'm going to share something with y'all that happened to my nephew and one of my step grandsons yesterday. My Yep, and it will kind of explain why I'm thinking this way. My they're 11 or 12.
Yeah.
My step grandson is mixed, and so he likes, when he gets his hair done, he gets, initials engraved into his hair, because that's cool for kids that age. Well, my nephew loves the way his hair looks, and he's trying to get his older brother to do that for him. Well, the last time they did it, they used clippers, and it turned out cute. But my nephew has blonde hair, so it wasn't as tight and as sharp as it could be. So when Monty got his done this time, my nephew Southern's like, Monty, how do you get your initial? What do they use to cut your initials into your hair? And Monty said a razor blade. A kid overheard razor blade, and then my step grandson, right after that, went and got something he needed out of his backpack. All right.
Oh, no.
That kid went to a school official and said, I overheard Southern and Monty talking about a razor blade, and then Monty went and got something out of his backpack. They took both kids. Yeah. Took both kids to the office, searched them and their belongings. So it's like telephone, know?
Yep. Well, I have a feeling I know what actually happened.
Well, I want to hear.
Well, a kid could have said to another kid, I wonder if Stephen took pictures of Teresa.
Yep, that's a possibility.
Somebody heard it.
Yeah, but I have a feeling I know what actually happened. Remember, many months ago, we talked about what the boys were doing on the computer and the websites that they were going to.
Oh, yeah.
Rotten.com. Guess what you have on Rotten.com? Pictures of
That's
torture,
right.
mutilation,
death porn,
restraints.
Yeah.
And this is exactly the same era where my daughter was in high school. And guess what they were doing in the class with their mobile phones?
Well, they were trying to one-up each other.
They were trying to one-up each other by showing pictures, right? So it's interesting, the story that Sunshine Christina recalled, how from a Chinese whisper, it expanded right out, right? So it's likely on the school bus or wherever, they're showing each other pictures of death porn. That happened in the same time frame. My daughter was in high school. She told us, Mom, Dad, this is what's happening in the classroom. People are whipping out their mobile phones and trying to one-up each other. And notice, what was the topic of the month then? Stephen, Brendan, the murder of Teresa Horby, the press conference, and it expanded right out. Guys, what do you think? Outrageous or possible?
It just blew the top off of everything.
Yep.
And, and the Saw movies were coming out during that time. And that was probably, for me, one of the most gruesome series I've ever watched. I mean, because unlike, the Freddy Krueger stuff and all that, Saw was
torture.
More
psychological.
More realistically believable, at that time for me. And I'm sure from a teenage perspective, when you've got access to the internet and an ability to show photos and
pass them on.
And then we also have a kid we go to school with in jail for murder and all those things. Your mind is open to all of these things and you're trying to process it. And so, it's very likely.
Susan, thank you, Sunshine. Oh, and Jaxie Swan, do you have a comment?
Just a brief one, and I don't want to make anything more out of this than because this is just speculation. But thinking about everything that had already happened, now here comes Brendan along, and this press conference, and everything that Kratz said at that press conference, he was very graphic. If you read the criminal complaint, it's
Oh,
very
yeah.
graphic.
Yep.
I can almost, in a sense, hearing parents talking in front of their kids at home. You just never know what might have been said. I'm just saying, but it's interesting. We're not done with the camera yet.
No, no. But don't you find that's remarkable that the individuals causing all this chaos, confusion are young children?
Oh yeah,
Brendan,
yeah,
Kayla, Blaine, and now Campion with all these
yeah.
rumors. And I reckon that's exactly what happened with Kayla. Starting some
What?
rumors, starting some shit, amplified out, got out of control. Right?
Right. It blew right up.
Yep. And guess who liked the Saw movies?
Bobby.
Bobby
Bobby.
Dassey. Bobby Dassey.
Probably all the boys.
They did. Yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah.
The more gore, the better. Now, let's fast forward to the May 13th interrogation. Now, it's quite clear that they debunked the pictures. Have a look what Mark Wiegert said to Brendan during the May 13th interrogation. I'm happy to read Mark Wiegert. Who would like to do Brendan?
I'll
be
do
Brendan.
Oh no, go ahead, Susan, because my dog's whining
way.
anyway.
Okay, Susan.
Okay.
All right. So this is during the May 13th interrogation. Wiegert. You know what else I heard?
Huh?
That you guys took pictures of her. That's true, isn't it?
No.
Did you take the pictures?
No. She said
Did-
no.
Did Steve take pictures?
No.
Did you tell somebody you took pictures?
No. She said no.
You told Travis that?
No. She said no.
So even though Wiegert was there with Campion to debunk the whole thing regarding the pictures of Teresa Orba, he still asked Brendan.
Over
Couldn't let it
2
go.
months later.
8 months
Yep.
later, wouldn't
Yep.
let it go.
He would not let it go.
See
All
if
right.
you can get that camera for us.
Correct.
Yeah, see if you
Correct.
can tell you.
Correct. And that's exactly what Kratz wrote to Kaczynski. Oh, maybe your client can help, find that mysterious missing camera with the pictures, right? Because you see, they needed hard evidence of what Brendan was saying, correct? They needed hard evidence.
That's right.
Kratz knew because he was getting in the reports from the crime lab saying, mate, we got nothing.
You don't have shit.
We've got nothing. We tore the place apart. We got nothing. Nothing on the cuffs, nothing on the leg irons, nothing on the bed, nothing on the sheets, nothing on the frames, nothing on the carpet, nothing on the wood paneling. Mr.
And
Kratz,
nothing in the RAV.
nothing in the. We got nothing. We can't put this kid in the crime scene. That's why of the insistent. Oh shit! Maybe they took photographs. That's hard physical evidence. They found nothing. Now, if we go to the next slide. Brendan, from the get-go, said to Kaczynski, I want a polygraph. I want to do a polygraph to prove my innocence. This is Brendan asking his attorney for a polygraph exam. Now, Len Kaczynski went to the internet, found Mike O'Kelly's, I forgot, I think it was called Don't Lie to Me. One of those weird Jack 61.
Yeah, I remember this because, look, for those of you that out there that don't know, Len Kaczynski had a defense investigator. His name was David. I don't know his last name, but there was already one at his disposal. So that comes in later, of course, when after O'Kelly becomes. I just wanted to point that out. But I remember Kaczynski was asked how he found O'Kelly, and he said, "Oh, somebody gave me a piece of paper or said to go to Super Pages, and that's how I found him because he was looking for a polygrapher that
Correct.
except only the $300 that the state would pay.
That's correct. That's correct. I think it was 350 altogether, right?
Something
So
like
he
that,
went on
yeah.
he went on the internet and found Mike O'Kelly. Now, if you look at Mike O'Kelly's CV, the guy's got a CV as long as your arm. He could do everything. He's an expert at everything, including doing polygraph. So,
Can I just say,
yeah,
it just hit me that he looks exactly like Yosemite Sam.
yes, he does.
You son of a bitch.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. He is one of the worst that you're going to find out there, right? So now, Brendan had the nous to say, "Look, do a polygraph. I'll prove my innocence." So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to do a quick explanation of what a polygraph detects. Right? It's often regarded as a lie detector. And unfortunately, in most criminal courts in America and probably throughout the world, they ban this type of evidence, right? Now, a lot of there are pros and cons, whether it works or whether it doesn't. But basically, what a polygraph measures is several parameters. It measures, I'll read it out, body movements, breathing, both your diaphragm and your chest. It also measures perspiration. It also measures your pulse and your blood pressure. So Jack 61, if we could just move it to the right a little bit, you can see that the individual, the cartoon, has certain devices connected to him. Now remember, Brendan is the one that requested the polygraph test, right? So you have a blood pressure cuff, that's item number 1, that records your pulse and your blood pressure. There are rubber tubes around your chest. They determine your breathing rate, how you're breathing. Then there's also metal plates that are on your fingers, and they measure or record sweating, right? So in other words, if you're nervous or apprehensive, these devices will pick all of that up, right? And you can see on the computer screen, you have all these parameters that are being measured by what's being coupled to your body. Susan.
Well, I'll just say I took a polygraph one time.
You did you?
Yes, I was working in Chicago at a restaurant, and somebody was stealing from them on staff, they thought. So we all had to take a polygraph. I tell you what, I was so nervous. I was completely innocent. I didn't steal anything, but I was shaking. My heart was like pounding. I mean, I was so nervous just to sit there and be all hooked up to that and everything.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. Yep. But Susan, that's the whole idea. The whole idea
and I passed, but still, you know.
Great, great. The whole idea is to hype you up, right? And so when you're seeing all these parameters on the computer screen, you're looking at them going, oh my God, did I just tell a lie or did I say the truth, right? So if we look at the next page, Jack 61, so you've got all these devices hooked up to you. There's a computer, a printout. Susan.
Yeah, I forgot one thing. They asked me, have you ever stolen anything?
Yeah.
And I actually told them.
Yes.
I stole a piece of bubble gum when I was like 5.
Yep. So that was it, right? So you're pouring out your soul and he's probably saying, Professor Lady, we just want to keep it to this. It reminds me of a famous scene from the Goonies. Remember that little kid when those crooks asked him and he gave his life story? That was so funny. The Goonies, the big boy. That was so funny. And the criminals are looking at each other going, oh my God. So Brendan's hooked up to all these devices, right? And if you have a look, you have a printout. And I've actually got the original charts, but I'm not going to put them up. It looks exactly like that, right? So it measures your respiratory rate, the degree of sweatness on your fingertips. It determines your blood pressure and also your heart rate, right? So what O'Kelly did was he devised a set of questions for Brendan, and we got them. So let's have a look at the next slide, Jack 61. So if you have a look at if we could just have a look at the top section. Now remember, this is the very first time that Brendan had encountered Michael O'Kelly, right? And so this polygraph test was performed after the self-interview, right? Remember how Brendan Dassey had to fill out the self-interview form? And he basically said nothing about Teresa or her RAV4, basically professed his innocence. Now he had to sit for the polygraph test, right? So he'd already been in the room for maybe an hour and a half, writing down all these responses. So now O'Kelly hooks him up to the polygraph test. What they do is they tell you a series of questions where the answer is obvious, right? And they do it to set a baseline. So you're used to the polygrapher, you're used to the machine, the apparatus. And so Brendan Dassey obviously had to pick a number, right? I think 1 to 10. And O'Kelly would have asked him, oh, did you pick this number? Did you pick that number? And obviously the answer is no, because say Brendan had picked 10, well, obviously it's none of those responses. But if you lift it up, Jack 61, this is the interesting part. So remember, what O'Kelly is trying to do is to get Brendan to confess to the rape and murder of Teresa Horbach. So what he did was he devised a series of questions. And don't worry, I read the post-conviction hearings and I read all of this regarding how he set it up. So what O'Kelly had was 3 questions, R5, R7, and R10. They're the so-called relevant questions, right? And then there are other general questions intermixed, right? What we're going to do, I'll read, let's take it in turn reading the questions, right? From top to bottom. So here's Brendan strapped to the machine, right? We'll alternate. Jack 61, you want to go first?
Sure. So where am I starting? I'm just starting on number 1 here.
Number 1. Yep.
Okay. Is this the month of April?
And Brendan responded, yes. Right? Because the
And it
test
was
was
May, right?
No.
Wasn't
It was
May?
April 16. April 16.
Oh, okay. Okay.
This is the first time that they encountered each other. Brendan goes, yes. So second question, I'll read it out. Regarding the accusation that you helped kill Teresa Marie Horbach and saw her body in the fire outside the Stephen Avery house, do you intend to answer truthfully each question about that? And Brendan said, yes. Okay, Susan, you want to read the next question?
Are you completely convinced that I will not ask you a surprise question on this test?
And Brendan
He
goes,
answered yes.
I'm not surprised. Right? Okay. Sunshine?
Hold
Do you-
on.
do you see-
Yeah, I
do you
got
see
it.
something?
Before 2005, except for 35 X's.
Oh no, the one up on top. That one there. Yep. I think is it
Are you
R4?
complete? Oh, am I on the wrong part? Hold on.
It's a top
C4.
part. C4.
Oh, C4. Before 2005, except for 35.
No. One up.
No.
One up. Can
Oh,
you see it?
3. Are
Yeah.
you completely convinced? What am I missing?
It's one down. One
One
down.
down. from
Oh,
that.
did you help kill
C4.
Teresa Marie
No.
Horbach
No.
No,
C4.
C4. That one there.
before 2005,
On
except for
chart 2,
30?
not chart 3.
Chart two.
Chart 2. It's the top chart.
Can you see
got
it?
Oh, I see. Before 2000, and it starts the same. Wow. Before
Yeah.
2005, did you tell a lie?
Now, what did Susan say? In her, yeah.
Yeah. it's-
And what did he
Oh.
say?
No, no.
No.
He said no. He said no. Right? He said no.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting.
And he did not fail that question either.
No.
There's not a red dot by it.
No.
And do y'all want to know something? This was given to him on Easter.
Not this one. That's
This is
the
not
next
April
one.
16th.
This is
Okay.
April 16. This is April 16. Don't worry,
April.
everyone gets it confused. There are 2 sessions. He only did 1 polygraph on April 16, but he did multiple interview forms.
Yes.
Yep. April
Right.
16th was Easter.
No, wasn't.
According to Google, I just
Oh.
Googled it. Do you see how they played him?
What it was April 16, 2006, Easter.
That's what Google says. It's my daughter's
Ooh.
birthday. I just wanted, and
Okay.
her birthday falls on Easter like every 7 years. And
Okay.
so, but isn't that interesting? So the murder of Teresa Halbach was supposedly occurred on Halloween.
Halloween.
And they do this lie detector test on Easter. It's all playing
Yes.
on his emotions.
Oh, yes.
For
Yes.
sure.
Yes. Correct. All right. Shall we continue, Jack 61?
Yep. Did you help kill Teresa Marie Halbach? He says no.
He says no. Okay. Before 2005, did you tell a lie to someone who trusted you? And he goes, no. Sunshine. Susan.
Did you help kill Teresa Marie Halbach on Monday, October 31st?
And he
No.
answered, no. Sunshine.
And do you want me to do only, is today Sunday?
Yep,
Yep.
correct. And he said, no.
No.
Jack 61.
Before 2005.
But it was a Sunday?
Yes.
If it was Easter, it was a Sunday. Right?
Before 2005, did you do something wrong? And he says no.
No.
No. And the final question, was the body of Teresa Marie Halbach burned in the fire by the Steve Avery house? And he answered, no. So what they do, they're very clever. They have a set of relevant questions and they ask them again. That's why Sunshine Christine, I think, got confused with the second chart number 3, because the questions are the same. That's why I put the dot. The dot are identical questions. So they intermix those questions with slightly different ones. The whole idea is to trick you and to make you feel nervous. Jack 61.
Well, yeah, and this is his defense people, you know.
Yes. Yep. So you could see from the questions that were asked, Brendan denied any involvement with Teresa Halbach. Would you agree?
Yep.
Yes.
He did.
He didn't even hesitate, right?
Yeah.
He said yes, no, whatever. Told the truth, etc., etc. Now, what's interesting is that during the post-conviction hearings, O'Kelly was asked, well, mate, you videotaped this session. He goes, yes. He goes, where is it? He lost it.
Such a bullshit story. He told.
Oh, wait, it gets better. A lot of the official documents and also emails and letters, O'Kelly has lost them. He was meant to turn everything over to another attorney for this post-conviction hearing, and a lot of stuff has been lost. Lord knows what they were doing in the background to entrap their own client.
And this was only 3. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jax.
No, I don't have anything.
I was just going to say, we're not talking about 10 years down the road. This was his 2010 hearing, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
That's right.
So this is only 3 years later.
That's correct. And I found out that Dvorak had to hunt down O'Kelly. He had to hunt him down because they put in subpoenas for O'Kelly. They couldn't find him. Right, Jack 61?
Well, yeah, and he kept dodging them too. He kept dodging. They finally physically went
to him
and handed him the subpoena in person.
Yep, handed to him in person. Dvorak did, right?
Yep, that's
To
right.
get him to the post-conviction hearings. And the post-conviction hearings are gold because it outlines what they were doing to Brendan, right? So if we look at the next page, Jack 61, so you could see that Brendan denied any involvement with Teresa Horbach. So they asked him a series of, we won't read these. The questions were identical, but the questions in between are slightly different. They're basically to get you nervous. Oh my God, what did he ask me? But if you look at all the questions that were asked, he denied any involvement at all, right? But if we look at the next page, Jack 61, O'Kelly had a new set of questions, right? R5, R7, and R10, they're called the relevant questions. Let's read them out. Jack 61, you want to go for the first one?
Okay. R5. Did you see Teresa Maria Halbach in the Avery house? Brendan
And he
says
said,
no.
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 I'll read R7. Did you see Teresa Marie Horbach in the Avery house on Monday, October the 31st? And he said, no. And Susan, would you like to read the final one?
R10. Did you
Yeah.
touch any part of the body of Teresa Marie Halbach?
And he
No.
said, no.
Nope.
So again, and if you look at chart number 7, they ask the same type of questions, right? So the important thing is this: Brendan denied any involvement with Teresa Horbach, right? Now, this one's going to do your head in. There are 3 possible outcomes to a polygraph test. It's either deception indicated, there is no deception, or it's inconclusive. Inconclusive means, what the fuck do these charts tell me? I've got no idea. So you can't say yes, or you can't say no, right? Inconclusive. In other words, it's a little bit mixed up. There's no indication of lying, telling the truth. You can't say anything. Susan, did you have a comment?
I don't. I'm laughing at Andy B.
What's
Sorry.
Andy B saying? Is he being cheeky again?
He says he was butt naked roaming around Yosemite National Park wearing a yellow ribbon around his old oak tree. He's referring to O'Kelly.
Okay, yeah, that's probably where it was. But anyway, the important thing is this, right? When Brendan did the polygraph test, O'Kelly did not tell him the results. So Brendan had no idea whether he passed, he failed, nothing. O'Kelly did not tell him. However, he rang up Kaczynski, I think, or sent him an email, and he said, look, the results from the polygraph were inconclusive. Inconclusive. Does that indicate that Brendan was lying?
I don't
No.
even
No.
believe that.
What can you
I don't
say?
believe that.
You can't say anything, right?
Can't say anything.
They can't derive any data from it.
It's a wash. It's a wash.
Yep. There's more to it. Dvorak asked Kaczynski and O'Kelly about the results in the post-conviction hearing. Can we have the next slide? Jack 61. So are you happy to be, Jack 61, are you happy to be Dvorak, which is the question? And Susan, would you like to read the answer, which is Kaczynski?
Sure.
Who's going to be Fallon?
I'll do Fallon.
Okay. Okay. And what was your reaction to the polygraph results?
After
Objection. Relevance. The judge overruled.
Okay. After O'Kelly told me that it was inconclusive, he made some comment to the effect that he thought that Mr. Dassey was a kid without a conscience or something. So I guess I took from that. I really was non-determinative.
All right. So Kaczynski is basically saying, well, I didn't really know what to make of the polygraph
Kid
results.
without a
Agree?
conscience.
A
Yes.
kid without a
Yeah.
conscience.
Oh, please.
Well,
Okay.
Brendan's non-reactionary, and here's O'Kelly supposed to be this big expert, and he can't see that. He scam artist. Sorry, my
Right. But I'll get you on in a sec, Sunshine Christina. But don't you think O'Kelly was actually secretly pissed that Brendan Dassey didn't fail the test outright?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know it.
Yep. He's looking at the results going, oh shit, there's no deception. It's inconclusive. It's a little bit mixed up. So he would have been really pissed off. But look what O'Kelly said in the post-conviction hearing. Can we have the next slide? Jack 61, would you read Dvorak? And Sunshine, would you like to read the answer, which is O'Kelly?
All right. Okay. What did you tell Mr. Kaczynski the results were?
My recollection is that they were deceptive.
God, son of a bitch.
Holy shit.
I remember reading this. I remember it. I was so mad.
Right?
Of course, they've been destroyed and lost, and
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. So he said the results were deceptive, that Brendan was lying in his polygraph test.
Talk about a guy without a conscience,
Yeah.
Yep.
No doubt.
Thinking
describing himself.
I don't know if I'm going to quote the quote correctly, but what was that little slogan he would put on the bottom of his
Oh,
correspondence?
yeah.
The truth is just a chameleon within
chameleon.
our words. And
Yep.
that describes him perfectly because
Correct.
he's one of those.
Say it again, Christina.
The truth is but a chameleon within our words.
Yep. Yeah, I've got it. I've got the quote. I'll show you later.
Yeah,
Right.
that's close. That may not be exact, but basically,
Yep.
I take
Gotcha.
from that you can use words to make the truth whatever you want it to be.
You can manipulate it.
That's
Well,
right.
you said
You can manipulate it.
Christ is the master.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
And these are people that are supposed to be tasked with helping to obtain justice.
These are important individuals in the criminal justice system,
That's correct.
right? Now, I didn't realize this until I did further reading. This got me really mad. So, guys, if you're in chat, put down your iPad. If you're buttering your bread with a knife, put down the knife. Have a look at the next slide, right? In 2019, I believe it was, both Nyrider, Drizzen, Dvorak, and Seth Waxman, put this proposal to Governor Evers. It was a petition for executive clemency. It's a big report that went through Brendan Dassey's interrogation. They talked about all the things that went wrong with his attorney and O'Kelly. But there was a section that froze my blood and really made me angry. Can we have a look at the next section? Susan, are you prepared to read this out? This was what they sent to Governor Evers.
Trying to convince his lawyer to defend him, Brendan asked for a polygraph examination, a request that the nation's leading police interrogation trainers consider an indication of possible innocence. Brendan did take the polygraph, and one of the nation's leading polygraph experts confirmed that Brendan had passed with a very high score, strongly indicating that Brendan was being truthful when he denied involvement in Teresa Halbach's murder.
Now, I tracked it down. Right? The polygraph expert has got a CV twice as long as your arm. His name is Professor Charles Honts, Honts. He looked at the polygraph and he said, mate, your client passed. He's telling the truth. This begs the question. Now, wait, it gets worse. They wanted to include Professor Honts' testimony during the trial. And guess what happened? Guess who blocked it?
Probably Fallon, Kratz.
Fallon, Kratz, and Fox agreed. based
course
on
they did.
irrelevant.
Passing of a lie detector test is irrelevant.
Yep.
According to these
Yep, they-
people.
They didn't want Hunt's testimony put into the record, right? So their argument would have been, oh, look, it's irrelevant, Judge. In Wisconsin, we don't allow lie detection. Remember what Kratz said to Kaczynski. I heard a rumor you're doing a polygraph test. Are you going to release the information out in the media?
And threatened him.
And threatened him. And now you know why. Now you know why. This is remarkable. Brendan wanted the test and he passed it. Under all, you know how Brendan is, a shy kid, wants to be by himself, play PlayStation 2 games. He did a polygraph test and he passed it. Completely passed it with flying colors. I have a feeling that 0.98, we'll talk about that later when he said that this was deception. I reckon it was the 0.98 meant that it was 98% pointing to innocence, not guilt.
I think that's the reason O'Kelly said he's a kid without a conscience.
Correct?
Because he passed it.
Because he passed the polygraph.
And O'Kelly damn well knew he was guilty.
Yep.
And he told the truth.
Yep.
Well, that was how O'Kelly was able to rationalize saying that the fact that he was lying, right? Because he said that Brendan failed it.
No, he said it was inconclusive.
Oh, he said it was inconclusive. So
And then
that was okay.
And then at the 2010 hearings, he said he failed it. What he told Kaczynski.
Right.
Right.
But that was his way of rationalizing it to lie on him.
He's a piece of crap.
Because he knew it. He knew he passed it. So he said it was inconclusive and told Kaczynski it's because he's a kid without a conscience.
Correct.
I'm not a violent person, but that man needs his ass beat. Sorry.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So they're scratching their heads going, well, we've got the criminal complaint, right? And we've got Brendan Dassey's confession. The kid's guilty. Shit. The guy passed the lie detector test. I asked him, did you do this? Did you do this? Nope. Innocent. They got the results and go, oh my God, the kid's telling the truth. So what do? They have to downgrade it by saying, oh, it's inconclusive. And that's why he said he's a kid without a conscience. Right? Giving the implication that he's so cold-hearted, he's such a psychopath that he passed a polygraph test, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's
exactly what he's implying.
That's right.
So they got an independent polygraph examiner, the best of the best. I think he does governmental work as well. Hans, because your client passed with flying colors. He's telling the truth. No, we're not going to admit that into a court of law. It's irrelevant. Right? So now, if you thought that was bad, Kaczynski had a plan, right? Unless we have any comments, guys, on the polygraph test. Now, who in the chat didn't realize that Brendan actually passed his polygraph? Put yes or no in chat. Be interesting to hear your comments, right? So now what Kaczynski does is he files a motion and motion to suppress statements. Now he knows this is the last stand for his client. He's got to suppress the March 1st interrogation because there's no forensic evidence against Brendan. It's only his words. So he does an attempt to file a motion to suppress. At Jack 61, do you see the top bit?
Oh, yeah.
Where it says to Special Prosecutor Ken Kratz. Can you just read the top bit?
Yeah. I want everybody to notice what the date is. April 19th.
Yep.
Kaczynski's been on the case now since I think the 7th or the 8th, so we're around in that neighborhood.
7.
So he's basically had 5.5, 6 weeks to write this out. Didn't do the preliminary hearing. Not going to do that anyway. Right.
Is
Special,
this
special
is this the day of the polygraph test?
No,
16.
no.
It was the
The
16th.
16th? Okay.
This is a couple of days after, right? So you think about it, right? Imagine if O'Kelly said, your client Brendan actually passed the test with flying colours. But what did
Right.
O'Kelly say? It was inconclusive. Interesting.
That's
So
correct.
Kaczynski writes this motion to say, Judge, you got to suppress the hearing. You got to suppress the confession. You want to read it out, Jack 61?
Yep. Special Prosecutor Ken Kratz, please take notice that on Thursday, May 4th, 2006 at 9 a.m., the defendant, through her attorneys, assistant and Kaczynski officers, will move the court to issue an order suppressing the use as evidence of the statements of the defendant to law enforcement agents on February 27, 2006 and March 1st, 2006, and the fruits thereof, because said statements were obtained involuntarily and in violation of the defendant's rights under the 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution and Article 1 and Section 8 and 11 of the Wisconsin Constitution. As to the merits of said motion, the defendants asserts the following factual and legal basis.
And then they go through the case, right? But if it's what he wrote, it's what he wrote on almost the last page, which is laughable, right? So if we just pass on, go on to the next page, and we'll read a paragraph each. Susan, are you happy to read the top paragraph?
Sure.
Where it says Wiegert and Fassbender.
Wiegert and Fassbender implied that Brendan's honesty in and of itself would help Brendan avoid consequences for his own behavior by statements such as, quote, "We can deal with it, but be honest with us," end quote. While not outright promises of amnesty or a pardon, the statements used to induce Brendan's cooperation implied that only the mildest of punishment, as long as Brendan was honest. The fact, of course, is now that Brendan faces the possibility of life imprisonment without parole, plus 72 and 1/2 years in prison.
Okay. Sunshine, would you like to read the next
That's
paragraph?
not even a sentence.
Yeah.
It's not a proper sentence.
No.
These factors substantially outweigh the factors the state might cite in claiming the statements were voluntary. Those factors favoring the state include the non-custodial and largely non-threatening nature of the questioning, the Miranda warnings for the second interrogation on February 27, 2006, and the interrogation of March 1st, 2006, in the generally non-leading nature of the questions asked. Had Brendan been much older and more experienced with the police, those would have been sufficient to prove the statements were voluntary by a preponderance of the evidence as required. However, he was 16 years old with substantial learning disabilities. Brendan's will was clearly overwhelmed by the stratagems of law enforcement. His statement should be suppressed.
I'll read the last bit. This motion is based upon the pleadings, records, and files in this action, as well as such evidence as may be presented at the time of the hearing upon this motion. If you read closely, he was actually giving a leg up to the state, what they didn't
What a
do.
joke.
And what evidence? There is no
it's a
evidence.
joke.
It's terrible.
This is clearly no effort.
No, you got it.
No effort to adequately defend his client.
Correct.
None.
He did
got
this. He did this so he could say, "Hey, I filed to exclude, the confession."
Yeah. Took
Check
me
the
6 weeks,
box.
but I took me 6 weeks, but I did something, guys. Come on, give me a break.
Yep.
Yep.
Check the box.
What he did was he white anted his own motion. He made sure it was going to fail. Now, this motion was closely reviewed by attorneys, other attorneys, saying he did a really weak effort. It was only a few pages long, and he really didn't expand upon anything. And in that report, you could see it in the motion. He even gave a leg up, highlighting the strength of the state's case against
Did it-
his own client.
Did it a couple of times, Doc.
Correct. So there was a plan,
So disgusting.
and that plan was exactly what you guys have just worked out. To check a box, oh yeah, I filed a motion. Oh my God, the judge is going to reject it because it's all bullshit. But it's what they were doing in the background that actually proved that this was the case, right? So if we have a look at the next slide, Jack 61, Dvorak asked Kaczynski, right? Who would like to read Dvorak?
I'll read
Who would like to
Dvorak.
Go ahead, Sunshine.
Sunshine. And Jack 61, would you like to read the answer, which is Kaczynski? So this is the post-conviction hearing.
Sure.
Okay, let's go for it.
Yeah. And the advice you were giving to Mr. Dassey at that point was that his case was pretty much hopeless, and that really what he ought to be doing here is focusing on a guilty plea.
I think I really was strong, more strongly in that direction once the decision was made on the motion to suppress. Seriously, dude, that was our basically our only hope, in my opinion, based on the evidence available to have an acquittal. There was the confession was suppressed. The state would probably have to dismiss the case for lack of evidence, as far as I know. And he just said that there was evidence, strength of the evidence. But anyway.
But did you notice what he said? It's all impinging on the confession, correct?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, let's continue.
Right.
So it was hopeless. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And you were making that known to the press. The fact that if the judge suppresses this evidence, that Dassey may well walk. Mr. Dassey may well walk out the door.
I believe so, yeah.
Wow.
So he's telegraphing to the press.
Oh my God.
If the judge suppresses the March 1st statements, my client walks.
Yep.
What,
Oh my God.
Susan?
Isn't that the
having a
goal?
Yeah. That caused an uproar.
Yes.
with the
Isn't
press.
that the goal?
But that's not Kaczynski.
Not for
It's not for,
Kaczynski.
no.
Yeah.
No.
Wow.
So he's telling the press, well, if the judge suppresses the March 1st interrogation, my client walks because they've got nothing else. And they know that the forensic results were coming in. Cohen was giving them the results. And the results were negative, 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 negative. We can't put the kid in the crime scene. We can't put Teresa Horbach in the bedroom. We got a problem. So notice Kaczynski's actually warning in the community, if the judge suppresses March 1st, my client walks.
Yeah.
This
That's
is
all they had.
Kaczynski. That's
Yep.
all they had. The statement, right? Do we have any other comments?
Just wanted to say hello to Jazz Naz. Woohoo.
And I
I
think
just wanna
Mark
say
has.
Poor kid.
Mark
Poor
Gaz
family.
is here.
Jesus.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
this is
you
just,
can-
just
Yeah.
nightmare.
It is completely bizarre what was happening. So he's basically saying, Jesus, he's telegraphing, I hope to God the motion fails because Brendan Dassey is going to walk, right? So
He guaranteed it would by that filing.
But there was a strategy in place, which I'll explain in a second. So in the meantime, right, O'Kelly was visiting the Avery salvage yard, and we got the emails. You want to go on to the next one? Who would like to read this one? So this is Strang. Strang writes an email to Kaczynski. Who would like to read this one out?
I'll read this one down.
Okay.
Lynn, I got a call from Stephen Avery's girlfriend, a man named Michael J. O'Kelly, who claims to be an investigator, polygrapher, and has a Chicago address on his business card, has been speaking to Barb Yonda and worrying her with statements about Brendan. She and the family are unclear about whether he is working for you. Is he? Or do you know who he is? He has taken pictures of the Avery property and been focused on Barb primarily, I gather. Let me know if you can shed any light. Thanks.
Right.
Dean.
So the family members are ringing up Stephen's attorney.
What the hell
Going,
is this guy? Yeah.
what the hell is this guy doing? And that's O'Kelly. So he's gone to the Avery salvage yard and he's taking photographs and he's talking to Barb, right? So Dean Strang sends an email to Kaczynski saying, "Do you know this guy? Who the hell is he?" Let's have a look what Kaczynski wrote.
And he's worrying Barb with his statement.
He's worrying Barb.
He's saying,
He's worrying Barb. Do you want me to read this one out?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so this is from Kaczynski to Dean Strang. Dean, he's an investigator and he's working for us. He has a satellite address in Milwaukee, so SPD approved him. Because of operational security, I will not be able to tell you much more than that. Our overall direction in this case won't be determined until after we have a decision from Fox on the motion to suppress, right? May 12th, right? Note that date. On a somewhat related matter, Barb Yonda wants me to release the video and transcripts of the Dassey interview to her. I know you have them. I won't release them to her or anyone for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is protection of Stephen's rights to a fair trial.
Oh, for God's sake.
I do appreciate the material Jerome Buting sent me on false confessions.
Such a little weasel.
Right?
So, two things. Operational security. If that isn't somebody with a big head trying to make himself feel special.
Yeah.
And what is SPD?
I don't know the abbreviation of that one.
Anyone? Sheboygan?
No. It could be.
Why would Sheboygan Police Department is the only acronym that fits in my brain at the moment for SPD? Anyone got any ideas in the chat?
State Police Department's the only thing that comes to mind for me. Otherwise,
Yeah, Sheboygan. I'm trying to think of another S. That is so bizarre.
Yes.
That email is so bizarre.
But don't you find it rather remarkable that they don't want to give the March 1st interrogation because they want to make sure that you want to protect Stephen Avery's rights. Yeah, in the background, Kratz is asking O'Kelly and Kaczynski to find incriminating inculpatory evidence against his own client,
that's right.
which in effect will affect Stephen as well.
That's right.
So Kaczynski is playing hide and seek. Oh, we're not going to give you this because we want to make sure that Stephen has a fair trial. Yet in the background, he's usurping his own client.
Right. Kratz was the master. He was.
Kratz was the organ grinder. Yep,
That's
he was,
right.
he was controlling what was happening in the background.
Brendan was not the master, which anyone knows that a defense attorney can only have one master. Can't have two. Never works.
Correct. But Buting had sent information regarding Dr. White to
Yes.
Kaczynski about false confessions.
Yep.
Hey, if you need someone that will help you out on proving that your client was coerced and gave a false confession, he's the guy that you needed. We employed him. We got the affidavit from him, the analysis. Here it is right there. What did Kaczynski do with that information?
Nothing.
Nothing, right?
He didn't care. Nope. Nothing.
Now, watch the next email, right? So this is on April the 27th, one day later, right? This is now O'Kelly to Kaczynski. Jack 61, would you like to start reading and we can share it?
Sure. Okay. Lynn, thanks for your information. Dean is trying to gather intel. What can you tell me about the private investigator working for Dean and Avery? Barb understands that I'm working for Brendan. Brendan confirmed this for her in one of their visits. On the other hand, I gave Jody my card on my first day at the Avery property. Steve began calling Barb's house every couple of minutes during my second visit.
Susan, would you like to read the next page?
Sure. Barbara's phone rang incessantly. I suspect that he may have called his mother's and or Jody's house and was informed that I was at Barbara's house down the lane.
Yeah, you can read. You can read the page.
Okay. On this past Monday and Tuesday, I was photographing the Avery property. Dolores, Jody, and Earl were there watching me from a distance. They appeared to be frantic as they were running from one house building to another and back to the other. It was like field mice watching for a cat. Eventually, Dolores came, drove out to see who was here. And when she drove up, she recognized me. We visited for about 10 plus minutes. Earl stopped as he was leaving. We exchanged pleasantries and introductions while shaking hands. We had a pleasant visit and he headed home. Dolores and I continued talking for a little while longer. I was trying to gain her trust while collecting intel for our client. I have what client is that, O'Kelly?
Yeah,
Kratz. Jen Kratz.
Yeah, no
Fowler.
shit. I have Barbara collecting information regarding Brendan's medical, educational, and family history, so we can begin assimilating the mitigation information for sentencing and penal placement. Oh my fucking God.
It's a fight incomplete.
What's the date of this?
We haven't even had the hear. We had the freaking hearing yet.
Correct. This is before. This is before the May 12th judgment by Judge Fox on the
That's
motion.
right. That's right.
These
This
guys-
tells you that it's the setup right here.
It's a setup. They knew their client. They knew the client was going to prison. They knew the judge was going to say, "No, mate, we're not going to suppress." They're already gathering intel. Already
They're not
before
gathering intel for Brendan. I guarantee.
No. No.
Wow.
No wonder the laptop and emails were lost.
They were lost.
Yeah, because if anyone is able to access his correspondence, it
Oh my
would
God.
probably unravel not just Brendan's case, but any case he participated in as a representative of the defense.
Well, they lost more than that. Remember, I don't know if Doc mentioned it or not. I know Doc knows. O'Kelly videotaped Brendan doing the lie detector test.
Yes, and
That
he
video,
lost.
he lost it. There was actually a box. There was actually 2 boxes full of shit that he lost.
Correct.
Lost. That's in air quotes, guys.
Oh,
Yep.
Barb says SPD, State Public Defender.
Okay.
Hey, Barb.
Thanks,
There you
Barb.
go. Hey, Barb.
Nice to see
Thank
you
you.
here.
Okay. So let's continue in the next page. Sunshine, are you happy to read that? I think
Yes. Okay. I have developed inside information that the immediate days after Teresa was murdered, that Earl moved both the Suzuki, Barbara's father's car, and her van to the boneyard. I am
Boneyard.
concerned. Yeah, I am concerned with the evidence being both degraded and or disposed of in the crusher by the Averys. It was clear in the discovery that the detectives are quietly asking about the Suzuki and trying not to sound an alarm for fear of losing the Suzuki and its possible evidentiary contents. This possible linking evidence and Brendan's truthful testimony may be the breakthrough that will put their case more firmly on all fours. Is there a way that we can secure the Suzuki and the van and protect them for the prosecution in Avery's case? Can we obtain a SDT to
Subpoena.
secure both vehicles in a closed sealed container? You want me to continue?
Yes, please.
I am not concerned with finding connecting evidence placing Brendan inside the crime scene, as Brendan will be state's primary witness. This will only serve to bolster the prosecution. It will actually benefit the state if there is evidence attributed to Brendan. It will corroborate his testimony and color him truthful.
Any comments?
Be a TAF.
Yeah.
Can we just take a little sidebar here?
Yes, please.
Number one, the Suzuki as being evidence of anything at all.
Yes,
And the
The-
van was
the-
there the whole time they were searching.
correct.
That's right.
And
So
so was the
if the cop-
Suzuki.
If the cops had found anything, blood or whatever, they would have seized them both
Already.
He
Correct.
doesn't
Right,
know what
that's-
he's talking about, number one.
at
No, he-
all. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have no idea.
Jesus,
So-
he thinks he's some kind of detective here.
Yep.
For fuck's sake.
So I'm wondering if he hasn't gotten his facts confused, because I found the Suzuki comment odd too. I'm wondering if he isn't thinking the Suzuki had something to do, if he somehow didn't interpose the Suzuki in the RAV.
Oh, I think he did. That's
Yeah, I
what
think
Doc said.
so.
He didn't. He or Susan. He didn't know what he's talking about.
He's got no idea. So essentially,
But he developed inside information.
That's correct. Correct.
Ooh.
So who is talking to him? It has to
I'm
be.
sorry.
Who's
Say that-
talking to O'Kelly? Has to be on the Avery salvage yard. Who's talking to O'Kelly? Have a guess. Who knows about
Candy?
this? And who else?
Earl.
Earl.
Oh, we had a cordial discussion.
Yes.
He's talking to O'Kelly. He's mentioning the Suzuki and also Barb
But
in this
that
van.
is not correct information. Those vehicles
No,
weren't
no.
moved in the immediate days after her murder.
no. But here's what the
It's misunderstanding.
true. But
Or
you know what
what?
the insider information is that O'Kelly thinks Brendan has done, and Stephen hid a weapon in the Suzuki.
Yeah.
Hid a knife.
Well, he
The
says up
blunt
there.
of the object.
Yeah, he says up here. It was clear in the discovery that the detectives are quietly asking about the Suzuki and trying not to sound the alarm for fear. Why would they have to be afraid? That is
None. In actual fact, I'll show you photographs of what they actually did with the Suzuki and the van. But this is clear black and white evidence that don't give a stuff about Brendan Dassey.
No,
Black
No,
and
no.
white, he's working for Kratz.
He's working
absolutely.
straight. He's working straight for the state.
State.
So
Yeah.
is
And
Kaczynski.
Fallon
And that-
and yeah.
the whole lot of them, and they don't
Yeah.
care if it hurts their own client because they're
Yeah.
desperately trying to put Brendan in the crime scene,
Yeah.
right? And they don't care. It'll color his testimony truthful.
I was trying to see here. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be holding everybody up.
I'm
A
not
lot
at
of
all.
these emails. I went back to the header. A lot of these emails, you could see where they were forwarded or
Yes.
or copied, not blind copied, but carbon copied to the investigators.
Yep. All right.
So that
So-
was from who to who?
That's O'Kelly to Kaczynski.
Correct.
This one that
Yeah,
we just
so
read.
it's
Yeah.
on here.
Yes.
Oh, we're not finished yet. We're not finished the
Okay.
email yet. So if we scroll to the next page at Jack 61, would you like me? I'll read half. I'll read up to the red, and then
Okay.
Jack 61, you can take over. Okay.
Okay.
I would like to salvage as much of Brendan's future as possible, and still have a work product that the prosecution can use. The more valuable that Brendan is to the prosecution, the better we can do for him in a plea coupled with sentencing, placement, mitigation. I have developed information that Brendan suffered head injuries from his mother, who used a wooden spoon to hit him on his head between the ages of 2 and 7. This was one of her forms of discipline for Brendan. Brendan was also assaulted by other boys. He failed in every physical altercation and was physically, psychologically, and emotionally a loser. This affected him in his quest for comfort, solace, sexual contact with the opposite sex.
This
Now,
guy.
guys,
I,
Yeah.
O'Kelly's meant to be working for Brendan, and he just
Yeah.
gave him a dressing down.
oh
Yeah.
my God.
He
He's
just
a
beat him
loser.
up too. He just beat him up too.
Yep, he's a loser. All right, Jack 61. Would you like to continue?
Yeah. If the detectives were trained in linguistic analysis, they would have arrested Brendan close to when they did Steve. Steve sent them on a wild goose chase, naming Bobby as the last person to see Teresa at the Avery property. I intend to collect the wooden spoon. What the fuck? And have it for you to use as demonstrative evidence at his sentencing and placement hearings. I like how you practice law and defend your client. Really. I enjoy working with an ethical defense attorney who is not underhanded and plays hide the ball. Thanks, Mike. Oh,
What
my.
What?
the fuck are these guys smoking?
What?
Yep, there it is.
Oh, my God. Ethical attorney.
OMG.
There it is. In pure black and white. They were there to take Brendan down. They were there
Yes.
to help Kratz, Fallon, and Garn to prosecute their own client and also Stephen Avery. It is shocking.
It's
So,
appalling.
it truly is
Andy
appalling.
B said it.
So he wants to bring a wooden spoon
A wooden spoon.
Uh,
So, in other
for
words,
demonstrative evidence and like
oh yeah,
pretend like he's gonna hit Brendan with it.
yep, yeah,
See
yeah,
how
yeah.
he flinches.
Yep.
What the
But
hell?
look what he said. Look what he said. Let me quote. He failed in every physical altercation and was physically, psychologically, and emotionally a loser.
My God.
This affected him in his quest for comfort, solace, sexual contact with the opposite sex. He
Let's all
complete-
pretend that O'Kelly's sitting there looking in the mirror, talking to himself.
autocrats. Autocrats.
Or the
Yeah.
Kratz, yeah.
Autocrats. But he's meant to be helping Brendan. He has no understanding of who Brendan is as a child.
No.
And he completely
Oh my
destroyed him from
God.
pillar to post.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unreal.
Now, Dvorak asked O'Kelly in court. Should we go to the next slide? So, all the emails we're reading, Dvorak made O'Kelly read every line. And he said, "What did you mean by that? Why did you say that?" Right? Right? So he really grilled O'Kelly. So, Susan, are you happy to read the question, which is Dvorak, and who would like to read the answer, which is O'Kelly?
Sure, Doc.
Okay, who would like to read the answer?
I'll do it.
Okay, let's go for it.
All right. And what discussion do you recall having with Mr. Kaczynski about going in that direction? What did he want you to do?
We were to gather mitigation information. We were to gather anything that would further the state's case against Stephen Avery. We were to gather whatever we could to put Brendan Dassey in the best light we could. The goal was to preserve as much as Brendan Dassey's freedom as we could. And that's...
And you were aware that Brendan Dassey at this point was maintaining that he was not involved in the homicide of Teresa Halbach?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
They completely bypassed whatever Brendan said.
Didn't
Right.
care.
Yeah.
They did not care.
Wasn't their goal.
Nope. No, their goal was to work for the state, gather inculpatory evidence against Stephen and Brendan, and do a plea deal. So no matter what Brendan said, no matter how many times Brendan portrayed his innocence, even doing a polygraph test and passing with flying colors, O'Kelly and Kaczynski did not believe him.
And didn't care.
Did not care. So are you trying to tell me that they weren't presenting the sacrificial lamb directly to the feet of Kratz?
Oh, they
course
were.
they were.
Absolutely, they were. Absolutely.
Totally.
Their own client.
God.
Their own client.
And
Okay.
Kaczynski did not get disbarred for this. shit.
No.
What the hell?
Lost
He
his
became
bar
a
card.
judge.
Lost his bar card for 4 months, I think, was his punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Don't worry.
Jesus.
We'll
Kind
go
of like
through that.
Kratz's punishment.
Yep.
I just have to say, I have to run, guys. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I have to leave. I'll be
No
listening
worries.
for a little bit on my way.
Thank you so much, Susan.
You bet.
Thank you
You
so
bet.
much.
Great
Yep.
job, Doc.
No, thank
I'll
you.
talk to
Thank
you
you.
soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Take
Thank you.
care, Susan.
Thanks,
All
Jack.
right.
Bye, Susan.
Bye, Christina.
So Dvorak asked O'Kelly another question. So if we can have the next slide, I think it's E8. Jack 61, would you like to read the question? And Sunshine Christina, would you like to read out the answer?
All right. Okay. So your goal is not only to get Brendan to confess, but to also go out and gather evidence to help the state in its prosecution, correct?
That is correct.
Even if that evidence tends to inculpate Brendan Dassey.
That is...
There you go.
There you go. There you go. So Brendan was a mere pawn in order to nab Stephen. And even if in the same process, it damaged their own client, they didn't care.
Didn't care.
They didn't care.
Because the goal was to convict Avery.
Yep, the goal was to nail Stephen by fair means or by foul, including helping Kratz, right? Which is completely bizarre. I've never seen it. There are lawyers, attorneys, professors who have gone through this case and are shocked, absolutely shocked with what they've seen. In the annals of criminal history, they've never seen it to this extent, right? Now, Jack 61, if we have a look at the next two slides, this is what O'Kelly was talking about, the Suzuki, right? But obviously, the investigators must have forgotten to tell O'Kelly that they already examined the Suzuki for forensic evidence on November the 6th. And in actual fact, they took the door off, right? Because I think they were looking for fingerprints or for blood. They went through it with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah,
Did they
that back
find any?
door that back door was removed. There was a bunch of crap in the cargo area.
Correct. Did they find any forensic evidence that pertained to the case?
No.
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 Did they find Teresa Horbach's blood?
Nope.
Did they
No.
find any biological matter pertaining to Teresa Horbach?
None whatsoever. Nothing.
None. And yet, what was O'Kelly saying? We better preserve that Suzuki because they're going to crush it. I think they're trying to hide forensic evidence. Whereas the investigators must have been thinking, mate, we already checked it on November the 6th. We went through with a fine-tooth comb. We took the door. We examined everything. We couldn't find anything.
Nothing.
Right? And if you look at the next picture, this is the van that Teresa Horbach had photographed, right? They found no forensic evidence. That's the first thing they checked. They found nothing of value in the van. They had I think it was not, I don't think it was Brutus. I think it was another human remains detection canine went right in the van. Any alerts, Jack 61?
No, none.
No alerts. No alerts. So I can't believe that O'Kelly was doing the work of the investigators when the investigators had already checked through both vehicles and found nothing of forensic evidence, right? So guys, we're nearly finished. So you now know that Kaczynski put in a motion to suppress. If we look at the next slide, Jack 61, we can go through this pretty quickly. Well, of course, Kratz hit back, right? And so on, I think it was May the 1st,
Yeah.
Kratz wrote, and I'll read it, states memorandum in response to defendant's motion to suppress statements. And Kratz, and I think there was Fallon on there as well, they went hard. They ripped whatever Kaczynski wrote to pieces. They went hard, right? Not like what Kaczynski wrote. These guys wrote a big response. And if you notice one of the footnotes, Jack 61, are you happy to read footnote number 1?
Yep. Although the state is not planning on offering any statements obtained on February 27th, it recommends the court find the statements voluntary. In addition, let me read the rest of it.
No, not necessary.
Okay.
But you know what Kratz was doing? Oh, you may find the March 1st ones involuntary. Oh, but we got the February 27th statements.
Yeah.
We want you to find those voluntary.
Yep.
Right? So
yep.
See what they were doing? It was a double-headed coin. Oh, you may reject that one, but we got these ones. Where he basically says the same things. Jack 61.
Oh, I was just agreeing with you, Doc. That's exactly right. That's exactly what he did.
Yep. So Kaczynski fires back, right? So that's May the 1st. Kaczynski on May the 3rd, this is one day before the judge is going to check everything out. He responds, right? Now, Sunshine Christina, do you see the response?
I do.
Yeah, I'll read the green. Are you happy to read what's down below?
Yep. What's in the yellow, correct?
You read what's in the yellow. I'll read what's in the green.
Okay.
So this Kaczynski, the state strategies used during the interrogation of Dassey, taken as a whole, deprived Dassey of rational choice during questioning and thus rendered his statements involuntary and inadmissible. Do you want to read the rest?
The state questioned whether Dassey alleged any coercion or police impropriety in his motion, page 8. Dassey does not claim that the techniques used by Uyghur and Fassbender were coercive in the sense of the highly confrontational techniques used in custodial interrogations, popularized in TV shows such as Law and Order. The test for voluntariness of a statement does not require that the police techniques be egregious, outrageous, or improper per se. The focus of the court's inquiry should be whether the government made it impossible for the defendant to make a rational choice as to whether to confess. If the government seriously distorts that choice by promising, for example, that if the defendant confesses, he will go free, the confession must go out.
So
Wow.
notice he's telling the judge how to destroy his own emotion. He's saying, well, judge, we're not saying that Fassbender and we get used, highly confrontational techniques, right? Not
Right.
thinking that Brendan doesn't need highly confrontational techniques. Check 61.
No, it was a psychological game that they played with him.
Correct.
But
Correct.
Kaczynski didn't include any of that.
No. But do you notice what Kaczynski's doing? He's giving a dot point for the judge to dismiss.
That's right.
He's
Exactly
and
what
the
he did.
judge, when the judge read the response, he used Kaczynski's own points to say, well, there was none of this, there was none of that. They offered him a drink. It was a nice couch. What are you talking about? Sunshine.
It's to think that an appeals court didn't see the minimal effort at trying to even look like this was a defense attorney defending his client. Like, I mean, it was clearly the COA had a nice record of how Brendan was the sacrificial lamb, right?
Yes.
They served him up on a golden platter in
Yes.
order to get the conviction. And the fact that the COA could not see that either says tunnel vision or intentional blindness to me.
It is shocking. And the only person who picked it up was Judge William Duffin.
He did. He stood
Duffin.
tall.
Whereas who didn't pick it up? Judge Fox.
Well,
And who
I don't
was,
know how he couldn't have known. I just
you know why? You know why? Because Judge Fox was the ultimate judge that was judging the Brendan Dassey case. And who was the judge in charge of the 2010 post-conviction hearings of Brendan Dassey?
Fox.
Judge Fox. So
I mean,
Judge,
if he couldn't see it in 2006 and 2007,
he wasn't seeing in 2010.
well, with everything that was revealed in 2010, well, actually, there was a couple of meetings, for ex parte hearings in 2009 that Fox was there. How he could not have seen what they did.
Shocking.
And
Because
he didn't correct it.
but you know what, Jack 61, the blowback to him would have been significant.
Oh, it would have. Yeah.
So he shut it down. He shut it down, and Duffin opened it back up again. Right. All right. So now, sorry, Sunshine. Do you have a comment?
I'm just curious. Does anyone else take issue with these cases going back before the judge in the original sentencing? I think the more eyes on a case, the better it is for the truth. I don't understand structuring it where the same people are relitigating the same thing. I mean, I don't see how justice benefits from that. Am I missing something?
I think it should have went at minimum before a public integrity unit.
Yes.
If not another judge that does review of these kinds of cases, or panel of judges, Ian.
Yeah. Let me give you an example in my world. Right. I used to mark hundreds of exam papers. And when the exams are marked, we have a time during the week where a student can come over and have a look at their exam paper. And some students will go over everything, question by question. Why did I gain a mark here? Why did I lose a mark here? Etc., etc. And we explain it. Occasionally, we have a student who goes, I'm not happy with my mark. I want a remark of my exam, right? Now, you think about it. If you mark that exam paper, say there are multiple people that have marked the exam papers, and a student comes up to you and says, look, I'm not happy with my exam, the mark that you gave me. I want you to remark it. If what tends to happen, because I've seen it, when the person re-examines the exam paper, they're normally harsher. They deduct more marks, correct? Because
Yep.
how dare the student question the way I'm marking the exam? They tend to deduct marks. So
Yep.
we tell a student, all right, if we look at your exam, you're sitting on 50. If we look at your exam, you may end up with 45 fail. Are you prepared to accept it? Right? A lot of them will go, oh, no, I'm happy with my 50. But sometimes you get a student who is very insistent and say, I want my exam remarked. You know what we do? We give it to another examiner.
There you go. That's the way to do it.
We give it to another examiner. And I've marked exam papers from someone else who had marked them, and my marks have been different. Because what Sunshine Christina said was a new, fresh set of eyes. Oh, yeah, the student made the point actually over here. We can give a bonus for that. That's fine. But not everyone does the same thing in the same manner. Correct? So getting a fresh set of eyes is crucial. Judge Fox is looking at all this and goes, fuck, if I say that I did something wrong, it's going to look bad on me because I'm the one who said to Kaczynski, oh, no, you can stay on the case. Right, Jack 61. Brendan Dassey wanted to remove his attorney.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Judge Fox denied it.
He did.
And he asked Brendan, why do you want to remove Kaczynski, your attorney? Because he thinks I'm guilty, Your Honor.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So what's Judge Fox going to do? Is he going to say, oh, God, yeah, I made a big mistake there. It cost Brendan all these months of investigation, support, the whole lot. Right? But if we have a look at the next email, this one is a little bit hard to read. This is Kaczynski, who writes an email to Wiegert, O'Kelly, and Kratz. Right?
Oh.
In other words, the prosecuting team.
Yeah.
Who would like to attempt to read this one?
I think I can read it.
That's right.
I can read one paragraph, and
Okay.
you or Sunshine can finish it up. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is on May 5th.
May 5th. This is before the decision.
Okay. Mark, our investigator, Mike O'Kelly, has developed some information in the course of talking to Brendan's relatives,
But not
but
Brendan.
not Brendan, that might shed some light on the whereabouts of the Suzuki and Barb's van, which may contain some evidence useful in this case. You are authorized to talk to him directly, is the number, or by email at the address above and the CC. This appears to me to be insufficient and in of itself to establish a PC for another search of the Avery salvage yard. However, it may go a long way toward getting it there.
PC is a probable cause.
Probable cause, yeah.
He's sent an email to Mark Wiegert. Right?
Yep.
I'll read the second bit. We would prefer to stay unnamed in any affidavit for a search warrant, if at all possible. Mike has not made any direct observation of the subject vehicles. The information he may just lead you to requesting some witnesses prior to another search warrant application. Sunshine, you want to read the last bit?
Also, Mike may want to take a look at the aerial photos of the Avery property at the Calco DA's office. He can call there directly at 920, well, bleep, 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 to see them during business hours.
So he's telling he's telling Mark Wiegert, who's an investigator, what to look at, to go to Cratch's office and look at some pictures.
Yep.
And giving him the phone number to do so.
Yep. Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
And
Now,
here's a potential for a search warrant, but leave our name out of it, for God's sake.
100% correct. Now, remember, all this is leading up to May the 12th, when the judge is going to put the hammer down. But the next email, oh my God. So, Jack 61, are you happy to read the first bit? Then I could read the second. And
Yep.
Yep. So this is O'Kelly. This is O'Kelly to Kaczynski, May 7th.
Lynn, please notify the watch commander of the Sheboygan County Jail Facility that I will be meeting with Brendan Dassey on Friday, May 12th, when he has returned from the hearing at Manitowoc County Courthouse. I would like to start my meeting with Brendan upon his arrival.
Now, notice they've already set this meeting up on, guess what? The same day the judge is going to come down with the hammer.
That's right.
Now, don't you think you should wait before the judge makes his decision?
Well, you would think, if you don't want to get caught with your finger in the cookie jar.
And so what are they anticipating already? That the
They
judge
already
is going
know. They
gonna
already
get denied.
know.
They know. They know. All right, I'll continue. Listen to this. I will be bringing recording devices such as a Sony digital camera and Sony camcorder and a dictaphone portable audio recorder. I will have accessories such as a tripod and blank recording tapes. I will also be bringing my Toshiba laptop and Canon IP90 portable printer and paper. Sunshine.
I am CCing Prosecutor Ken Kratz as Special Agent Fassbender and Detective Dietering with this email, as they are in possession of the discovery that I will need in my meeting. You want me to continue?
Yeah. Keep reading to the bottom of the page.
I will need copies of some of the discoveries, such as 1. Black white aerial of crime scene, National Guard. 2. Color aerial of crime scene, law enforcement.
Okay. Jack 61, would you like to continue?
Yep.
Let's just wait there, get the next page. So they want to get all this forensic evidence, photographs.
Yep. This is O'Kelly wants to go get
O'Kelly.
this information.
O'Kelly.
Yeah. Okay. Number 3, for sale sign recovered from the interior area of Stephen Avery mobile home, front and back. 4, color photos by law enforcement of victim's car in position on the day of discovery, November 5, 2005. Number 5, color photos by Pam Nicole Sturm of the victim's car in position at the time day of discovery. Number 6, recorded transcribed interviews of the following subjects: A. Stephen Avery, B. Earl Avery, C. Charles Avery, and D. Dolores Avery. 7, the anonymous letter, envelope, and contents. Number 8, photos of Suzuki inside Stephen Avery's garage. Number 9, photos of the interior of Stephen Avery mobile home. Number 10, 8x10 missing person Teresa Halbach flyer. Number 11, electronic copy of available discovery, photos, documents, reports, and transcripts. Thanks, Mike.
So you can see who he CC'd in, right? All the heavyweights, Kratz, Fassbender, Diedring, right? And so the intention was to use all this as props. And why?
That's right.
Because Kelly wanted to obtain a full confession from his own client, Brendan Dassey.
That's right.
He was going
Force
to
him
use...
into it. And
Yep.
force him into a plea deal.
Yep. He was going to use psychological interrogation by prompting him and showing him all these things regarding Teresa to his own client to get an admittance of guilt from Brendan Dassey so he could present to Kratz, yep, my client has confessed, let's do a plea deal. Instead of working for his client, he's clearly working for the state. Would you agree?
That's right.
Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Right? It's there in black and white. Jack 61.
Absolutely. And there's actually more. There's and I'm pretty sure it's in the 2010 hearings. And I can't tell you who talks about it. I think it was O'Kelly that actually told the story. They had been talking about this for days.
Yes.
It's not necessarily contained in the email, but he admitted they had already been planning for this meeting, but because Kaczynski says, "Hey, wait, man, I can't be there because I got guard duty this weekend."
Correct. So let's have a look at the next email. This one is a doozy, right?
Yep.
So Kaczynski writes to O'Kelly, right? Jack 61, would you like to read out the this paper, this slide?
Okay, this is Tuesday, May the 9th, 2006.
May the
Mike,
9th.
Mike, I will fax the Sheboygan County Jail on Wednesday morning. It is sitting in my printer at the office. As to the items below, I would suggest calling the Calumet County DA's office and talking to Shirley. Gives the phone number. For item 11, I do not believe it exists in any unitary form. Unless you think it would be a bad idea, I was planning on going to Sheboygan on Wednesday afternoon for a general pep talk and talk to him about giving a complete statement to you on Friday.
So this is Kaczynski saying to O'Kelly, I'm going to go talk to Brendan, give him a pep talk to make sure that he gives a complete statement to you when you go and see him on the Friday.
That's right.
Right?
He's already beat on the kid with a sledgehammer.
Oh yeah. So if you look at the response at the top, I'll read it out. Mike, I will cancel my planned visit for today. I've plenty of other work to do. So O'Kelly writes to Kaczynski, basically saying, oh, look, don't go. Leave him with me. This email has got to be one of the most bizarre emails I have ever seen. This is O'Kelly to Kaczynski a couple of days before the judge is going to make a decision. Sunshine, would you like to read this page out?
Yes. So at 10:11 p.m. on May 9th, 2006, you, being O'Kelly, wrote, Lynn, I am learning the Avery family history and interactions within and about each member of the Avery family. These are criminals. There are members engaged in sexual activities with nieces, nephews, cousins, in-laws. Anyone else is fair game to these people. They have a history of stalking females who have no connection to this group. Customers and or their relatives unwittingly become victims of their sexual fantasies and thus are stalked. The victims have no idea that they are being victimized. This is truly where the devil resides in comfort. I can find no good in any member. You wouldn't know good if it slapped you in the face. These people are pure evil. This is where one would eat their, oh my gosh, this is where one would eat their young to justify a control issue where none previously existed. A friend of mine suggested this is a one branch family tree. cut this tree down. We need to end the gene pool here. Oh,
I've never seen in this context someone that's supposed to be defending
Yep.
a client write any such trash as this. It's just complete trash.
Oh, but it gets better. But don't you think, though, guys, the way we've constructed the podcast, we've shown the lead up events.
Oh, absolutely.
As it transpired, as it
Absolutely.
this is before the judge makes the decision.
That's right.
Right? Okay.
yeah, you definitely put it back into context. That's
It's a
for
context, right? So you know what's happening in the background. Jack 61, are you happy to read the yellow bit, and I could read the blue bit?
Sure. Steve Avery needs to be removed from society. I believe that his male siblings could have a role in Teresa's crime scene. I believe that Earl may have disposed of the evidence and Chuck may have ignored Stephen's physical movements during this period of time while he was transporting Teresa's car to the back of the Avery salvage area. There's no question that Dolores is guiding and directing this behind the scenes.
It's Mama Avery's fault. Now, notice what he says to Kaczynski. I think that your visit will be counterproductive to our goals for Brendan. It could have Brendan digging his heels in further. He could become more entrenched in his illogical position and further distort the facts. He has been relying on a story that his family has told him what to say about October 31st, 2005. Thus, it'll take me longer to undo if I can, even without your visit. We need to separate him from fantasy and bring him to see reality from our perspective. We need to separate him from the unrealistic world that his family resides within. Brendan needs to be alone. When he sees me this Friday, I'll be a source of relief. He and I can begin to bond. He needs to trust me and the direction that I steer him into. Brendan needs to provide an explanation that coincides with the facts, evidence.
Oh my God! Source of relief. I just soon snuggle up with an alligator than this guy.
Well, what do people in chat think so far about all this? They must be horrified.
I've read this dozens of times. These emails, dozens of times, and I'm still jaw on the floor.
But you know what, guys? Now that we know the context in which it resides, you can see how nasty, how evil this was, because they had already preempted the judge was going to go.
That's right.
And they were going to go after Brendan big time, which they did.
That's right.
All right. Sunshine Christina, you happy to read the last page?
Yeah, I was just going to read a couple of comments.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. President said it correctly. He said the devil is in the detail. And James Crane said, yes, we are seeing the players laying out their plan. Not everyone was involved, but we are seeing the people who were involved in the setup. And yeah, especially on how Brendan was so easily served up on a silver platter with
Correct.
little recourse. I think what this highlights for me specifically is how the attorneys tasked with defending Brendan from the beginning clearly participated in making sure that he had no recourse if he was convicted.
Yes.
Nowhere to go.
Yes. Yeah. So would you agree, guys, that Fremgen and Edelstein were doomed? They were gone.
Well, it was way too late. It was far too late. I mean, the press conference number one was, I think that really was a huge nail in both of them, Stephen and Brendan.
Yes.
But then I mean, it was really kind of an unknown, I'm sure, to most people. With Cegelski just denying the preliminary hearing, that was another major blow. And then, of course, Kaczynski didn't pick it up. But then what these two dirty bastards did, they set that kid up. There is absolutely no doubt, and the state was aware of it. There's absolutely no doubt.
100% correct. But J61, these are the only emails that we got. Imagine the ones that are lost.
Well, and not only that, the conversations that were done behind closed doors.
Yes.
We'll never know, because I'm sure that they had conversations about what they were going to do. Because, well, we'll get to it.
Right, but Kratz gave a hint of it by saying that what Cegelski did was the right thing to do. So he's already preempting, which gives the impression that he's already spoken with Cegelski, said, look, mate, here's the criminal complaint of your client. If I was you, do a plea deal. Just do a plea deal.
Be thinking about a plea deal immediately.
Correct. All right, let's finish this. We're nearly done.
Okay. So I would like to obtain his confession this Friday. Brendan should provide details of the crime scene and data that has been previously undisclosed that mirrors the crime scene data. However, I will follow your lead and adapt to your decision. It has been interesting to read Brendan's evaluations by the school psychologist, yet he was able to read each question, respond to, draw pictures of his recollection of the crime scene in my interview form. Thanks,
but
Mike.
What that asshole forgot to say in the email that Brendan did not mention Teresa Horbach and said he had no involvement with Teresa Horbach.
That's right.
So he never mentioned the crime scene, right? So it's incredible. So see how they mocked the psychologist? Because but he was able to read my questions.
And what do you think about the comment? I think it was a couple of pages back. The truth is but a chameleon. So take that statement and then think about the sentence he put in his email. However, I will follow your lead and adapt to your decision.
Yep.
And then right above that, I previously undisclosed that mirrors the crime scene data, not even that confirms, not even that corroborates.
It's got to match it.
Correct.
No, it's got to look like it.
Correct.
It's got to mirror it.
Right.
Go ahead, Steve. If you can explain it better than I'm trying to.
Well, here's the problem. What they were trying to do is to get Brendan to say something that was unique to the crime, that only the killer or killers knew took place.
Correct.
There's one problem. Brendan never gave anything unique that only the killer or killers knew. Why? Because Fassbender talked about going under the hood. It wasn't Brendan Dassey that volunteered that information. And Brendan even said, well, I think he went under the hood, but I didn't see what the hell was going on. What Fassbender wanted Brendan to say was that Stephen disconnected the battery terminals.
That's right.
Right? Because no one knew that the battery terminals were disconnected.
That's right.
We made the biggest disaster of the whole lot. Rookie amateur mistake. Talked about the shooting scenario. Brendan Dassey never, ever mentioned a shooting scenario until it was presented by Wiegert. What did Brendan say?
Sorry. I couldn't think of. I couldn't think of it. Why did you tell us this before, Brendan? I couldn't think of it.
Because I couldn't think of it, right?
Of course.
And then when Brendan said, "Oh, we hid the knife and the gun underneath the seat and in the RAV4," that sent the investigators scrambling back to the RAV, and they went back in. They checked underneath the seats. They opened up the bag. Did they find a knife? Did they find a gun?
Nope. Didn't find
No.
shit.
So here's an issue. All the major facts were presented by Fassbender and Wiggett. They spoon-fed it to Brendan. And I was reading of a case in which an investigator who arrested this kid, who was it? A panel played back his interrogation to the investigator who arrested this kid. And I said to him, where did this kid get all the information from? And the investigator goes, from me. He didn't even realize that he spoon-fed all the facts. They released the kid.
As they should.
refused charges, as they should. And they should have done it to Brendan.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So now you've got this situation whereby they know there's something wrong. They want Brendan to admit to something that only the killer would know. Right? And Brendan got so many fundamental facts of the case wrong that, and he also recanted so many. Oh, and the other thing was about the purse and electronics in the burn barrel.
Oh,
no, how did you know about that, Brendan? Well, on my way to my uncle, I decided to stop to the burn barrel. What did you do that for, Brendan? Oh, because it was full. And what did you see, Brendan? Underneath the garbage bags, I saw the purse, electronics, and camera.
And there was a wheel in there too.
Yeah, and he goes, "You saw that?" And then remember what Blaine said? "Oh, I saw smoke." So, which of course was all crap. So how's Brendan meant to see electronics underneath garbage bags if the burn barrel was on fire?
Exactly.
That meant that all the major elements Brendan could not give.
No way.
It was spoon-fed by the investigators. And here we've got O'Kelly saying, I'll repeat it, previously undisclosed that mirrors the crime scene data. Brendan was not able to give anything unique.
No.
Nothing whatsoever. All right, guys, we're nearly finished, but I've got a couple of clips. Jack 61, do you have our very first clip?
I do.
All right. So this is Kaczynski talking about the importance of the judge's decision on May 12th. If we can play that one, Jack 61.
Yep, it's going to play as soon as I load it. Here we go.
Unlike Steve.
Absolutely mind-blowing.
Yep.
Absolutely there it is. There it is in black and white. The judge had no idea about Brendan. His personalities, his susceptibilities, none whatsoever. So because Brendan sat there like a stone with no emotions, because they weren't overcoming his will, the statement is voluntarily given, right? And notice what the judge said, Jack 61 and Sunshine Christina. Oh, they said that they purported to know. I see nothing improper in that. So the judge was defending the Reed technique.
Yes.
So even the judge is saying, Fassbender and Wiggett did nothing wrong. Nothing wrong, right? So if we have a look at the
Execution.
Yeah. So if we have a look at the next slide, there's the hammer, right? The hammer's fallen, right? Judge comes out with a decision. Sorry, mate. Your statements are admissible. What did Kaczynski say in that video? The only thing that they can get my client on is his statements.
That's it. That's all there was.
I had no forensic evidence.
Nope.
Right? And the judge said, no, it's admissible. It is admissible. So now, I think we're on our second to last slide, right?
Yeah. I think there's one more, Doc.
There's another slide, I think, Jack 61, I2. So Dvorak asked Kaczynski this. Jack 61, are you happy to read Dvorak? And Sunshine, are you happy to read Kaczynski, which is the answer?
Sure.
Yes.
Have a look at the deviousness of this. Let's go for it.
And you selected May 12th because you knew that if the decision went against Brendan, and Brendan learned about that, and you told him, well, we've lost the motion. This confession's coming in. You knew that this would be a low point for Brendan. This would be a body blow for Brendan.
This would be a point he was most likely to think about what really happened and tell me.
Yeah. You figured he would be most vulnerable at this point.
From talking to me, yes.
Okay. So that was a strategic decision, I guess you could say, on your part.
The time of the interview shortly after the motion hearing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course
There
it was
you go.
strategic. Of course it was strategic.
There you go. So they knew that the judge was going to say, no, mate,
That's
your
right.
statements are admissible. So they then keyed up O'Kelly to get a confession from Brendan on the same fucking day.
That's right. That afternoon.
So put yourself in his shoes. Brendan did the polygraph test, right? He actually passed it. His attorney and O'Kelly are getting forensic evidence and talking to the investigators and talking to Kratz behind Brendan's back. They're going on the property, taking photographs. He wrote his brief for motion to suppress pathetically, did not defend it, and he did it deliberately. And he even told in his motion what the state didn't do wrong. So the judge is going, huh? He's not claiming this, this, and this. Okay. Confession is in.
And didn't use the information from Beauty and String that they paid for.
About coercion.
That's right.
None. He left it right out because what Kaczynski did and O'Kelly was to set his client for failure.
That's right.
Now, have a look at the next little clip. This is our final clip. This is directly after the judge talks to and tells them that the interrogation is going to come in. Have a look at the faces on Mama Avery, Carla, I think, and also Brendan's mum, Barb. Total devastation. Let's play that clip, Jack 61. This is our final one.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay. So think about this in terms of chronology. Brendan has just received that statement from the judge. Your testimony is coming in. Guess where now Brendan is going? Guess who he's going to be confronted by?
O'Kelly.
O'Kelly. And that. So now he's going to get Brendan to fill out another self-interview form. And what we're going to do, I'm not sure whether I'm going to do it next week or the week after. I'm just going to need some time to calm down because I'm really pissed. I don't know about you guys, but
Yeah,
when you see a train wreck like this, and put yourself in his shoes, Brendan's shoes, and that's your son or daughter, and you realize that his own attorneys, yeah, and special investigators were actually working for the opposition and how to set your son or daughter up to fail, right? What we're going to do in the next podcast is just going to completely blow you away because that's when O'Kelly talks to Brendan. But we've got a real special treat, and that is we're going to read the entire transactions that occur between Michael O'Kelly and Brendan. And I found, don't ask me how, but I found the self-interview form that Brendan started to fill in. Remember during the interview, Jack 61 and Sunshine Christina, where O'Kelly read it and goes, who's missing from this? Remember when O'Kelly said, who's missing from this?
Yes.
He made Brendan start again.
Yes.
And guess what? The state of Wisconsin released the new DCI documents. And guess what was included in that release?
Oh,
That's right.
Brendan's full self-interview form that he did for O'Kelly.
Yeah, that's that one that you and I talked about the other night. Yeah.
Yep. And we're
That's
going to go through all of it. And
awesome.
if you need a psychologist after that one, you're going to need one for sure, because Brendan actually started writing the self-interview form, and O'Kelly looked at it and said,
Mate.
I can't help you, mate. I can't help you with this. Made him
Yep.
do it again. Unbelievable. All right, Jexy Swan, we're going to have the last slide. And I wonder whether you agree with this. Right?
Oh, I thought I had the last. I thought I did the last slide.
It's the one. There should be one more. I'm not sure whether you got it. I3. Have you got that one?
No, only got I2.
Okay, I'll read out I3, and it is a quote by Benjamin Franklin, and it says, "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." Would you agree?
I agree.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So Kaczynski, by failing to prepare properly in his motion to suppress, he prepared to fail. He knew he was going to fail his own client. Absolutely mind-boggling. All right, guys. Well, that's the podcast. I hope that you've enjoyed it and that you've learned a lot. Guys, do we have any comments?
Well, I've got a bunch, but we do have some questions.
Oh, good.
I tried to highlight these as we went through. So if I missed, apologizing to the live chat. If I missed your question, I apologize. I tried to grab them as I would go back and forth. So anyway, here's the first one, Sunshine. I'm going to pop them up. If you could read the question out, please. This first one is from 3 Rad Forest.
Is closure of the ASY an indication that Stephen's case is getting closer to a successful outcome? Do you think Stephen would benefit from any proceeds from the sale of the ASY?
That's a good question. I don't think it has any indication on his case, personally. I think it's just a matter of, Chuck is getting. Chuck's older than I am. I think he was born in 55. Is that
He
right?
was probably close
Isn't that
to
right?
his 70s.
Yeah.
Close to his
So
70s.
that puts him, 6 years older than you and I, Doc, and we're 63. So
We're both 63, correct. I don't think Stephen will get $1 from any sale.
no.
Stephen's a convicted criminal. He won't get $1.
Unless there's something in the will that makes sure he's provided for. They
Yeah,
can't
but
really do anything about that, I believe.
No, but what do you think the Horbach family is going to do?
Well, I
So-
mean, yeah. I mean, if there's any kind of real money, they could potentially go after it. But
Yep.
I think he can only receive up to so much on his commissary.
Yeah. But
So-
I just think personally that Ma and Pa Avery have made sure that whatever the maximum is for his commissary, he has that amount set aside and someone they
think so.
know is going to make sure.
Yeah, I think
Because,
so.
I mean, if he was my child and I knew he was innocent, I knew that his siblings had been manipulated to the point one of my biggest fears would be that my child would go without at my passing. And I would try and do everything in my power to make sure that didn't happen.
Correct. Plus, Stephen does have biological children too. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there was a filing. Yeah, that's true. There was a filing recently from the Court of Appeals, but it only is an indicator. What we were told is that they won't be asking for oral arguments from the defense of the state. So they'll be going off briefs. So anyway, moving on. The next one is from Corey Zipper.
Do jails like Calumet employ a third-party detected hang-up call policy to sometimes milk the $5 connection fee? What a moneymaker if
It is a money
nefariously induced. Seems
Yeah.
like sometimes it is. It wouldn't surprise me if they don't have little like things written in to just, get 5 here, click 5 there. I
I know
commented
that.
on this.
Yeah, I looked into this a bit once, and I apologize. I can't remember the exact policy, but I do remember this, that even if somebody called or was on the phone for 10 seconds, that counted as a minute gone.
They do a minimum charge. Correct. A
That's
minimum
right.
charge.
And it was expensive, so we knew that.
Yeah. They racked up thousands of dollars worth of phone calls.
Oh,
The families.
easily.
Thousands.
Easily.
I,
Okay,
I'm
next
gonna.
one.
I commented. Hold on. I commented on this in the chat, and I thought it was kind of funny. So I'm gonna say what I said in the chat. It wouldn't surprise me if there isn't something to milk more money out of the inmate's family. But then again, I also know those phones are slammed down in frustration by inmates over many things. And for those of us who remember using pay phones and push button phones, when the call didn't go the way you wanted it to, how you'd slam it in
Bang,
frustration.
bang, 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 bang.
Bang, bang. Yeah.
Yeah, this new generation does not know the pleasure of slamming a phone in somebody's face.
You don't want to throw your mobile.
No, you can't throw your mobile.
No, costs too much money.
Correct.
Yeah. All right, the next question is from 3 4s.
Was Bobby or Scott Taddick telling Brendan not to take a plea deal? Good
That's
question.
a good question. That's a good question.
I can't answer that one.
I can't answer that one either. I know that Papa Avery, Mum Avery, Stephen, they were fairly insistent on Brendan not taking a plea deal. I don't know about his brother Bobby or Scott Tadich.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything along those lines at all.
Yep.
Okay, next question is from Corey.
Did they offer Brendan a plea deal hoping he would say no? Because they sure couldn't have Brendan out of prison talking to Uncle Stephen about the case.
I don't think it went as far as offering the offering of a plea deal. I don't even think it went that far. That was their ultimate aim. But after the May 13th interrogation, everything went to shit.
I was going to ask about that because sometimes it reads like they actually had a plea deal. At least they, even if it wasn't presented, they had an idea of what they were going to offer him. Do we know for sure?
Yeah, I think the skeletal outlines are one. I think you're correct, but they never actioned it.
Do you know what they were going to offer him? Does anybody know?
15 years. 15 years, I think.
15 years. Yep, 15 years.
Wow.
Which means he would have been out. Brendan would have been out.
Yeah, but to a 15-year-old.
Yep.
To a 15-year-old, that's his whole entire life in prison. Like, you know what I mean? It's like rationalizing that. I have a nephew who has like, to him, something that occurred, there's an actual fancy name for it, but he has no grasp of time past. So
perspective.
Yeah, so like 4 days can seem like 4 hours or 4 years. Because in his mind, the way his memory works, it happened a while back. And his concept of a while is fluid. And so from Brendan's perspective at 15, 16 years of age, 15 years in prison could have felt like 1500. Because 15, I mean, like, I just couldn't imagine spending 15 years in prison, knowing you're saying you did something you didn't do, knowing you're saying your uncle did something you know he didn't do, or if he did, you don't know about it because you wasn't there. Like,
Yes.
how do you wrap your brain around that?
Well, it's very interesting. I think Brendan Dassey's personality has allowed him to survive the ordeal, that he's been able to cope, because he's actually frozen in time. He's frozen.
Yeah.
And I was looking at a YouTube video with Laura Nyrider and Steve Drizzen, and I think Brendan has given one interview. And at the end of the interview, they said to him, "Oh, Brendan, what do you want to tell the world? What do you want to tell the world?" And Brendan goes, "I like Pikachu, and I like this particular character." So instead of saying, "I'm innocent, please," no, he told him what he loves. He loves Pikachu, and he wrote a letter to Governor Evers, stating what he likes. He likes this character. He likes Pikachu. He likes playing video. So he told him about himself. This kid, he's no longer a kid. He's a man. He's frozen. He's frozen as a 16-year-old.
Absolutely.
He's frozen in time.
And that's a known thing. I think that's a known thing for not, Brendan's I don't think maybe so much now, but then he was a slower child. And, a child's mind, I can even remember being a teenager and younger. Your mind doesn't work like it does once you're experienced and older. It's different.
No.
Because you don't have that world experience.
No.
But I do know, to add to this before we move on, I do know that there was a deal offered to Frimgen and Edelston, and they came back with, I think that, I don't want to say this wrong. I think Frimgen said, we might have something to talk about or something at 10 years. But other than that, of course, that was not going to be discussed. So it was a done deal.
And don't worry, I'm not sure when, but we're going to go through Brendan's courtroom appearance, the whole lot. And I'm telling you, the reason why it's taking me so long, there are hundreds and hundreds of documents, right, Jack 61?
It's crazy. For somebody that has no forensic biological evidence in the case, thousands of pages of documents.
Huge.
In his
Huge. And all legal arguments.
Yeah.
One thing I'm learning from following the Young Thug YSL case is that when you don't have physical evidence against someone, you have to create a case. And if you don't have physical evidence, the only thing you have is words. And then the hope that you can manipulate, confuse, and weave events to make it look like a crime was committed.
Yes.
And that's
create enough
narrative. Create a narrative.
Right. Around an event.
Correct.
But you don't have any proof that. And I've said it a million times. This trust me, bro reports. I'm not interested. If you had a chance to prove it forensically, why didn't you snap a photo, dude? Come on.
Yeah, and also it highlights the importance of vitamin FL.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Right there. You chuck out item FL, you got nothing. In fact, they still can't link Brendan to item FL. They can't link item FL to Teresa Horbach, despite item FL containing Teresa's DNA, because I can explain item FL. But the state can't explain why a bullet fragment sitting on concrete dust for months has a robust profile of Teresa Horbach, but contains embedded wood and red paint.
Yeah.
The two don't go together. Yep. So where is the source of So
And
where's the
that's
source
why
of
Brendan
contamination?
Dassey, it's also why Brendan Dassey can't get his conviction overturned. Because if you lose Brendan Dassey, you lose item FL. And item FL is the only tangible piece of evidence that builds
That places Teresa in the garage.
in places, yeah, in a place occupied by Stephen Avery at some point in time.
Correct.
That's correct.
Correct. But all
That
the
is correct.
other anecdotal evidence suggests that Teresa wasn't in there. The only outlier is item FL. And when you look at item FL macroscopically, it's junk. Complete
Yeah,
junk.
because it's not her blood.
If you look at what Sherry Culhane did, it's
Yep.
it's complete garbage.
100%.
It's just a series of mistakes as far as I'm concerned. Anyway,
If the judge
Mistakes.
knew, sorry, Sunshine.
No, go ahead, Dr. Silkman.
I was going to say, if the state judge, if the judge was a molecular biologist, he would have tossed Culhane, item FL, and Garn out.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Right out,
Yeah.
outright. Take your snake and shove it where the sun don't shine. But in Wisconsin, it was allowed. It was allowed.
Well,
Voodoo
item
magic. That's what
FL.
it was.
Item FL is so convoluted because of how Sherry Culhane had to manipulate paperwork to even get it as
Correct.
a piece of evidence in the trial. I mean, she didn't have her it's been a while, so if I'm wrong, correct me. She didn't have her supervisor sign off on it. She
That's
went
correct. Maria
outside the chain of command and got someone else
Agreed.
to sign off on it.
Yep.
There's no blood on it. It wasn't found until 5 months later.
Yep.
There's no evidence from Stephen Avery on it. And what am I missing, Doc? Jax?
you're missing.
There's no blood. There's no blood in the garage.
But
Oh,
the
yeah.
worst part is she contaminated it. The negative
piece of
control.
Correct.
The negative control was contaminated. That means the test has to be thrown out and
You
redone.
stop right there. You stop
That's
right there.
right.
I was going to say, that's why when you discuss item FL with somebody on Discord or X, the moment they open their mouth and say that item FL is admissible, you stop. Just stop the conversation right there. It means they don't understand experimental controls. So experimental controls are crucial to determine the validity of an experiment. In a crime lab, are you allowed to make mistakes? Sunshine Christina and Jaxie, are you allowed to make mistakes?
No.
Through?
In Wisconsin, you are.
No, because if you make a mistake, it means that somebody could be sitting in prison for the rest of their life. You make a mistake, it means that you could be releasing someone who's guilty.
That's right.
So 0 tolerance, 0 mistakes.
That's right.
That's why accredited
Isn't
labs
Sherry
are forced.
Culhane's-
What's that?
Isn't Sherry Culhane's DNA in that test?
In a negative control. Correct.
Yes.
That's
Piece of
right.
negative control.
So
That's
that means
right.
she was. So that means she was either ungloved or unmasked during that
Correct.
test.
Correct.
Or sweaty while
Yes.
doing something.
Yep.
So I said ungloved or unmasked, or both.
Or so let me hypothetical. Let's say she was committing a crime during the test. And it's because of that, she was sweating. And a drop of her sweat fell from her brow into the dish where item FL was contained. Could that contaminate the quality control? Hypothetically.
No. The quality control, the PCR negative control, is a separate tube to the test. So in the test where she washed item FL, it came up with Teresa's DNA. In the PCR negative control, it should be 0 blank. There should be no DNA template. She contaminated part of herself inside the PCR negative control, which meant that she had a contamination event at a workbench. So the rules dictate If you contaminate a negative control, you stop right there.
Oh.
You throw everything out.
Oh.
You throw everything out. You cannot draw any conclusions. Cohane thought, shit, I've run out of DNA. I can't do the test again. This is the case. This is the state's case. So what did she do? She had to come up with a deviation request form. But
And
not
use
only
it
that,
and use that incorrectly.
she used it incorrectly because it's for exculpatory, not inculpatory. You can exclude someone, right? So if the DNA was, say, from Joe Black, you say it didn't contain Teresa's DNA, it contained Joe Black's. He's got nothing to do with the case. But Cohane wanted to use the information from whatever fell and say it contains Teresa Halbach's DNA, the victim's. And the test says you can't do it. You can't use it for inclusionary purposes, only for exclusionary purposes. Plus, she didn't get a supervisor, Marie Beth Veriali, who represents the Attorney General. You look at the form, representative of the Attorney General. She didn't sign it. She got another lab tech in another lab, another state, I think, county, to sign it. The group,
Milwaukee, the Milwaukee lab.
You don't do shit like that. It's just like you wanting to go on holidays, but you don't tell your boss. You tell your friend in the next booth and say, "Can you sign my leave form for 2 months?" Don't tell anybody.
Right.
You don't do that.
No.
So the problem is she used up all the DNA, and we know that Cohane had extracted high molecular weight, high concentrations of genomic DNA from Teresa Halbach in the lab. And Buting found out that Cohane kept the samples in her cupboard. She never returned them to the forensic lockup. So hence, despite you cleaning the lab, you can have DNA floating around on any surface. So, and plus, she had extracted genomic DNA from Teresa Halbach from the door latch, item IG, at the same time. It's in the same report. So if you get a bit of cross-contamination, all you need is one drop. You contaminate your sample. So there's your case. So Cohane goes, oh God, I've contaminated the most important sample of the entire case. How the fuck am I going to get this through?
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry.
Can you imagine? Yeah, can you imagine the phone call to Gone and Fallon and Kratz?
Norm Gunn will protect me. And Buting had a coronary on the spot saying, you can't submit that. That's bullshit. And Cohane admitted to all the things that she did wrong. Yes. You're not meant to admit that. Is that correct? Yes. So she knew that she was wrong, but prayed like hell the judge would not toss it out.
And you didn't.
To make matters worse, no one knew at the time that the bullet had shards of wood and red paint. It never struck a human being.
Yeah.
And that's why Fassbender, in convicting a murderer, had to come up with a single bullet theory.
The magic bullet.
The magic bullet. You would not believe it. In any other country, you would have been laughed out of court, but not in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yep. So now you've got item FL submitted. It was shown to be debunked that it never contained shards of bone, never struck skull. It never was the instrument that killed Teresa Halbach. So what does Kratz and the state do? Oh, we never said that it struck Teresa Halbach. We never said that it killed her. So it's now procedurally barred. So they've forgotten about item FL. But during the court, it convicted 2 people. That's right. Stephen and Brendan. And to make matters worse, Brendan never said about a shooting scenario, ever.
No, never brought it up.
Him by Mark Wiegert. So you got a kid in prison on evidence that he didn't generate. It was generated by Mark Wiegert. This is Wisconsin. And there are attorneys, lawyers, oh my God, that have gone absolutely, like they cannot believe this case is still the way it is. They still can't believe it. And you know what it is, guys? It's all about blocking. Jack 61, you'll talk about it tomorrow, right? About the documents that have just been released.
Oh my God.
Somebody went through with the black pen They're useless.
Oh,
They're
look,
almost
oh,
useless.
yeah. Some of the forms are
Right.
they're so redacted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's done deliberately.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
It's done deliberately. They want to shut this case down.
But yeah, IMFL at the end of the day, that's the reason that accredited labs, and Doc has taught me this. I've read it in other places too. Accredited labs do things a certain way, and that means they must use a negative control and follow
And a
the
positive
procedures.
control.
That's right.
Correct.
So it's just trash. Anyway,
In
all
every scientific experiment, and remember, I used to teach this at uni, right? And we did PCR with our second year science students, and we always had controls. And one of the questions in the test was, what happens if one of the controls gives you a result that's not expected? Can you deduce anything from the test? And the answer is no, you
no,
can't. You toss everything out and start again.
throw it in the
So
trash. Start over.
our second year science students know what you do. How come the lead tech of the Wisconsin State Crime Lab has got no fucking idea? And the attorney, Gum, who's meant to know science.
Oh, he knew.
It's mind-blowing. When I
Absolutely.
heard this about 6 years ago, I remember listening to Eric Cozy, and there was Scooby Dog, and talking about all this stuff on DNA. I could not believe what I was hearing. I could not. Remember Jack 61 when we started doing I could not believe what I was hearing. This is
I
voodoo,
remember.
complete voodoo.
Yep.
And two people are in prison on evidence that's fake. It's wrong.
That's right. All right. Got a couple more questions. This next one's from the Clack family.
They have no evidence to support the crime, but the polygraph proves the evidence. So what else can be done to get Brendan out of jail?
Nothing.
I mean,
nothing.
They could file a 97406, but I don't know what on. I mean, he's never filed a post-conviction relief, but
Yep. Well, you see, here's the bizarre thing, and we talked about it. You got Bobby Dassey, who Kathleen Joyner, rightly or wrongly, is going after. You got Brendan Dassey, the brothers. Brendan is sitting in prison till 2048. There's no forensic evidence on Brendan Dassey. There's no forensic evidence on Bobby Dassey so far that we know.
that's right.
The state argued, you can't look at Bobby Dassey. Why not? There's no forensic evidence on him.
Exactly.
Well, Brendan,
The double standard again.
we know there's no forensic evidence, but he said he committed the crime, so we accept it. So you got this bizarre situation where two brothers, one's in prison to 2048, and the other one, people are criticizing that Kathleen Zellner's going after Bobby Dassey as a viable third-party Denny. How dare you go after Bobby Dassey? There's no forensic evidence.
Well, what about Brendan?
His brother, his younger brother. There's no forensic evidence against him either.
The double standard.
And that was written by Josh Cole and Lisa Kumpfer, the Attorney fucking General.
Yep.
The Attorney fucking General came up with that. And we're reading that, right, Jackson? We're going, what the hell?
Exactly.
That's what it was. Yeah. So I don't know what further they can do.
People have asked me, they've sent me messages, same thing. I honestly don't know, because all the stuff that we're going through now is procedurally barred.
Correct.
It's too late. It's too late.
Correct.
So, all right, we got one more question, and another one from the Clack family.
Isn't the justice system supposed to convict on evidence? If a confession doesn't support the evidence, doesn't that make his confession voided? So short answer to that would be, in a perfect world, yes. the issue is this is not a perfect world. We are all open. We all have none of us are perfect, and even though justice is supposed to be blind and truth is supposed to be the desired outcome, there are factors that should not be relevant and yet very much are. And when there's corruption at the top of the chain, it leads to messes like this and many other cases we've discovered. That's my answer to that.
Perfect. Perfect. But remember, at the end of the day, Brendan was a stepping stone to get Stephen.
That's right.
He was a stepping stone. He was the sacrificial lamb set up by his own attorney at the time. And the argument is, well, Judge Fox even said, look, Kaczynski was gone, or Kelly was gone, but the damage was done. Right?
That's right.
The foundation of Brendan was crumbled, was gone. There was no foundation left, right? So there was no presumption of innocence for either Stephen or for Brendan. And Brendan got caught up in the whirlwind, right? And so they knew. And I reckon that Kratz still bears guilt for what he did. He still bears guilt because that's why he goes, oh, fuck, we'll do a plea deal, we'll get rid of Stephen. We'll get rid of the civil suit. No worries. Oh, shit, we got Brendan, right? And this thing about the forensic evidence, that's a very important point because the argument of Cam is, oh, well, don't worry about evidence. So what if there's no, remember they used the Carl Sagan quote, the lack of forensic evidence doesn't mean that there's no forensic, it's sort of like, well, okay, so the aliens did put the key there. Oh, but you didn't see an alien. So what? You could have done it. Right? So they're using this argument, and we're having this great discussion on Discord, right? With case 10,
Raven.
Yeah. This great discussion about forensic evidence, the lack of, and whatever. And in the end, it's a belief. Because I asked case 10, I said, do you believe that Teresa Horbuck was pinned up in Stephen's bed? He goes, yes. I'm there, all right, well, list your evidence. Write it down. You can't. There isn't any. Right? But did you see what the issue is? You're on a belief of a false premise where everything is pointing to Teresa not being there. And even Kratz had to admit in court, right, during the Stephen Avery trial, you know why there was no blood in the bedroom? Why? Because she wasn't killed there. She was killed in the garage.
Right.
Whereas in Brendan's trial, he slashed her throat, he killed her. So you got the same victim in two different murder scenarios and two different ways of killing the same person in two different spots. It's the most bizarre thing out, but yet it's happened. Yeah.
And then when we have all the issues surrounding multiple pieces of the evidence, the absence of what they what they found at Cuss Road.
Yes.
I'm convinced something happened at Cuss Road. I don't know what it was. I can't prove it.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But you see, you must understand, there's no oversight. You must understand. There's no oversight by the investigators, the crime scene investigators. Their belief was that Teresa was in Stephen Avery's trailer. She was held against her will. They tore the place from pillar to post.
Found nothing.
I've never seen that in a crime scene like that. Normally they're quite very careful with their swabbing, making sure, keep the integrity, everything. They tore the place from top to bottom and they extensively swabbed. They checked everywhere. So I had an argument with case 10. Well, where's the blood? Oh, Stephen just burnt everything. So therefore, you've got no proof. And yeah, he talked about grommets, but grommets doesn't mean that he burnt everything, right? There's no such thing as a bulletproof tarp, right? Because when you shoot somebody, it's been shown, you get microspray, blood droplets, hair,
Yep.
tissue. You can't hide it. The luminol treated everything, right? And even though you scrub, the luminol will still pick up the blood, right? It'll
Yes.
still pick it up, right? No matter how much you scrub, because the luminol will say, shit, there's been some scrubbing going on here, right? So they extensively checked the trailer. They can't place Teresa Hallbuck in there. They checked the garage. They can't place Teresa Hallbuck in there, except item FL. But you then look at the anecdotal evidence. What is the evidence that the shooting took place in the garage? And the answer is
Zero.
They asked
Because the bullet fragment doesn't have anything but red paint and wood on it.
Nothing. And Jensen got it wrong. He said, "Oh, I was told the blood of the decedent is on the bullet." So
Yeah.
struck brain full of blood. Boom. There was no blood, right?
No.
And they asked Brendan. They said, "Mate, what'd you do?" We took her outside and we shot her on the side of the garage.
Oh no.
He shot her where? He shot her where?
Now be honest, Brendan. Be honest, Brendan. Come on.
Because that's why Kratz made the comment. Well, how are those officers going to plant item FL in the snow? Remember, there's no snow tracks, right? Yep. That's why he said, "Oh, I couldn't have shot her outside in the garage," right? But when they looked at the burn pit, did they find any lead?
Nope.
No bullets, nothing. Did they find any exit wounds? Nope, nothing. Nope. So you've got only a partial knowledge of the crime scene. There's stuff missing. Whatever happened to that poor lady, we don't know. We still don't know. 2024, we still don't know what happened to that poor lady, Teresa Hallbuck.
No.
All right. I tried to do a short podcast this time, Jack 61. All right. Well, look, guys, again, hope that you've enjoyed the podcast. Like I said, we're going to take our time, do a deep dive, because I believe that Brendan's story needs to be told. People need to hear it and see it as it unfolded. And oh boy, things really ramp up now, I'll tell you. And we've got the stuff. We've got now his answers to what he wrote or was told to rewrite. But we'll do that either next week or the week after. But Jack 61, let's go through the panel. Tell us how you're doing and what you've been up to. Jack 61.
Well, I'm doing very well. We did get a release from the DOJ last week, and there's 4 files with this release. There's a letter, and we're going to go through this. Start going through it tomorrow on the open mic. And they made this release. I knew a couple of months ago, actually it's been more than that, it's been more like 4 months, that they were doing something, but because they hadn't answered still haven't answered any of my open records requests. What's that, Doc?
I was going to say, so you're to blame.
I don't think it's just me. I don't know who else requesting records, but I think I've got 5 open records requests with the DOJ that they haven't responded to. 1 from 2022, 3 from 2024, and at least one from this year. And anyway, this one main document, the PDF file, and it is every DCI report. This includes the ones that we don't have. There's some other reports in there too. Now, as Doc mentioned earlier, many are redacted.
Yep.
They're redacted to such a degree that they're just really just
useless.
Worthless. Yes,
yep.
They are.
Yep.
There are some new photos that we have never seen before, which tells me there's even more.
Yep.
We're going to go through it, but there's even more. What's really irritating, and I don't know if you noticed this or not, Doc, but a lot of the reports that they wrote, they included some photos that I guess are relevant. But then you go to another report where the They clearly said they took photographs, blah blah blah, and they don't
And
include any of them at all.
no, but
None.
but guess what? They did release the picture that Brendan drew of where he cleaned up the oil
Yes, they
in the
did.
garage, and it's nowhere near the lawnmower. It's at the front.
Yep.
It's at the front.
And in reality,
Oh.
those documents that Doc's talking about, they were kind of found by accident and got turned over to the DCI. They were in another file that got. I don't remember exactly. I remember reading the report, but I read a bunch that night, and I don't want to say it wrong. But they got turned over to the DCI, and they included them in this report. There's a lot of interesting content. This letter's interesting too because they talk about old audio files that they can't access,
Yes.
which it's really got me on my horse. But then they talk about that they're still working on making a release of digital files at some point. So we're gonna start going through it. I don't know how far we'll get. This document is it's long.
Yeah.
2,250 pages.
Yes.
Quite long. So we'll start it. I think I've got it set. I've already got the open mic posted. I've got it at 6. I'm gonna need to change that to 6:30 my time. Well, it's be 5:30 Central Time. So anyway, it's been a great podcast. Really pisses me off. I've read all this stuff before. It makes me so angry. Because it's wrong. It's just wrong.
Yep.
Um,
I think
so-
I think once you see it the way we've broken it up and the way we've presented it in a sequential manner, bringing all the relevant and fast forwarding and coming back, it presents a very powerful story. Making a
Yes.
murder was good, but it was very jumbled up. There were bits and pieces everywhere. We've done a sequential presentation, so you can see it as it unfolded. And
I really wish they would have done really one more episode and covered those 2010 hearings in detail.
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit. I mean, for anyone out there, a lot of people here have read it. We've bitched about it and we've talked about it. But for those of you that have not read the 2010 hearings, you got to read them to
Yes.
really. I mean, a lot of the other stuff is really important too. But those 2010 hearings, there's so much stuff that came out that was truly unknown in 2005 or 6 and 7 when
And I
about
hope
Brendan.
it never got out.
Oh God, yes,
I
for
hope
sure.
it never ever got out.
There's still a document from 2009 that's sealed. They will not give me.
Yep.
I don't understand that either. But anyway, I digress. Want to thank everyone for coming. Great questions, great commentary. More coming where this came from. So stay tuned. Great job, Doc.
Thank you so much, Jessica Suban. Sunshine Christina, how about yourself? Thank you for joining us.
It was my pleasure. I am very thankful that I'm able to participate, and I now have a laptop in order to start researching again. So thanks for that. And it's amazing to me how you can step away from a case, come back to it, and think, well, maybe you'll see things a little less evil, but instead it just highlights just how intentional this whole mess was from the beginning for me.
Yes.
When was Convicting scheduled to be released the first
Originally?
time?
Yeah.
Originally?
Years ago.
He originally said summer or fall of 2019. That's what he originally said.
Okay, because the 2022 date that these files were composed in this DCI dump, I'm just wondering if it wasn't an attempt to kind of have things ready in case the convicting a murderer had blown up, like Making a Murderer did, and they wanted to have their ducks in a row. And so it was kind of a release or a compilation that was ready to be released because of that. I understand, they got a new system now, a new portal system. A lot of law enforcement and DA's offices are shifting to this portal, where which DCI started this a while back, didn't they, Jax? I feel like we've been dealing with a portal or because I know we've been given temporary logins for large share files in the past through them.
I'm not sure. I'm not. Well, this wasn't done through the portal. This was on their website, on the DOJ's website.
Okay. I just think that convicting might have played a part in it. It was just kind of a thing, just my thoughts. And I do find a lot of the stuff released interesting, but yet there's still stuff that we don't have.
Oh, there's tons of stuff we don't have. Tons of stuff.
I think also, and I know that Jaxie Swan will talk about it, the way the documents are released, it's going to make researchers' work infinitely harder now. Infinitely harder.
Yes, it does, because, I mean, even it's just so ridiculous, because so many of, I mean, we didn't have all the DCI files. We were still missing dozens and dozens, but a lot of them we already had, and they're unredacted for the most part. 99% unredacted. And to go through and redact, I mean, certainly I'm fine with somebody's birth date being redacted, or any of their identifying information, even their phone number and address. I don't care about that. It's the name that matters. Who did you talk to? That's what's key, what's important. But
you've basically got no way you can track.
No.
And that's the whole idea of these investigative report, the ability to track names and associate names.
That's right.
Individuals, because that's important, because you try now looking for Carmen Wench, you can't. They've scrubbed their name out.
That's right.
And if you didn't know what the significance of Carmen was, you got no idea.
No idea. And
no idea.
It really, to me, I mean, they cite the different citation numbers for open records requests, but as their reasoning for doing all these redactions, but to me, it defeats the spirit of the open records law. That's me, though.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, look, again, thank you so much for a fantastic discussion, and thank you so much for your questions. And we appreciate your support, and hopefully we'll all catch you tomorrow. Thank you so much, guys. This is Dr. Silkman from the Foul Play team. Thank you.
With that, I'm going to tell you guys one more time, this has been a Foul Play production.